It's Free Talk Live. You can dial in toll-free, take control of the airwaves here. Bring up whatever is on your mind. Our number's 855-450-FREE, like freedom. Joining you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
It's Vincent.
And Chris.
And, of course, you can bring up anything you want. That is the point here on Free Talk Live. Coming up tonight, we can talk about Huawei, which is an electronic cell phone kind of manufacturer out of China.
Yeah, I think they're huge.
Yeah.
So they probably do all sorts of things like tablets and phones and
so
who knows what else.
One of their executives is in some hot water here in the United States, and Chris, you've got the story about that. Plus, Alex Jones is, I guess, kissing and making up with Joe Rogan. Vincent, you'll tell us why that even matters. If it does, we'll get into that story as well. But actually, over the past couple of days, there's been a story I've wanted to cover, but we for whatever reason, we didn't get to it. Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un had another meeting this week. And unfortunately, it did not go as well as I think some people were hoping that it would go. For others, they probably said, yeah, this is about what they expected, which is to say that it ended sooner than they'd planned it to. There was a level of an impasse that was reached between the two government heads. I don't like calling them leaders because I don't want to follow government people. I don't want to follow politicians in my life, and so it bothers me whenever it is the news media refers to these people as leaders. Of course, I think Kim Jong-un's actual title is Supreme Leader. So, like, if you were to call him what he's called in North Korea, that is his actual title. And so the story here is from the Daily Mail over in the UK. Donald Trump's talks with Kim Jong-un ended abruptly on Thursday, as the president said he was forced to walk away after the North Korean dictator demanded that all sanctions be lifted in return for giving up only some of his nukes. Now, apparently the North Koreans came out later on and said that's not what Kim was asking for, that Kim only wanted some of the sanctions to go away. But regardless, Trump said the final snag that caused the sudden breakdown was over sanctions and Kim's push to have all of them lifted in exchange for a concession Trump and his Secretary of State could not live with. Quote, "Sometimes you have to walk away," Trump told reporters at a press conference at Hanoi that was abruptly moved up after a breakdown in talks. He expressed his hope that the two leaders would meet again, but acknowledged, quote, "It might be soon. It might not be for a long time. I can't tell you." So, okay. So last year, for those that don't know, for maybe if you haven't been following this situation, it was back in April, May, June. I think the meeting was actually in June, but for a couple months prior, kind of knew it was going to happen, that Trump was going to meet with Kim Jong-un. And, you know, to his credit, it was pretty important. Like, it was a historic meeting. It was kind of, you know, a big step in the process of North and South Korea actually ending the war that technically is still going. I mean, there's not shots being fired, but it's still technically a war between the two countries. They have a demilitarized zone, and, you know, everything is, they're still at war. And so they are now, you know, pledging that they're going to be ending that war. They pledged that last year. Kim Jong-un pledged towards denuclearization, and North Korea has taken a couple of steps. Not a whole lot of them in the area of denuclearization, but they have taken a few steps to sort of show symbolically that they're looking to, you know, heal the wounds that exist between them and South Korea.
You know what a good counterpoint I think in the negotiations is U.S. denuclearization.
U.S. denuclearization?
Yeah, so
U.S. dollar?
No, the U.S. has nukes, right?
Yeah, I thought you said USD. U.S.
nuclearize the USD.
Right.
I see. You said U.S.
Kim
denuclearization.
Should respond
gotcha.
saying, yeah, if you lift our sanctions and denuclearize yourself, we'll get rid of our nukes.
That would be awesome.
See, they can't. The U.S. is not going to go for that.
No,
that's
of course
the
not.
thing. So the question is,
the U.S. government wants to be number one.
Why should North Korea accept it?
Well, the pitch that Trump has made to Kim, and they started this last year with a video that they made for him, basically a propaganda piece that they made just for Kim Jong-un to kind of show him what North Korea could be if, for instance, the sanctions against North Korea were lifted.
Well, and that's what was promised to Gaddafi if he got rid of his WMDs, and then look what happens a few years later. He got regime changed, and he got sodomized with a bayonet. And and I think I don't know if this contributed to it, but you have all these regime changers in the Trump administration. You have John Bolton, you have Elliot Abrams, and then you had just a few days ago Marco Rubio tweeted out a picture, and this was to Venezuela, this was to Maduro, but it applies to all the quote rogue regimes the U.S. is against. Yeah. He said before and after, and it showed a picture of Gaddafi as president, and then it showed a picture of his death video where he was stabbed in bad places with a bayonet. So when you have U.S. policymakers with that sort of rhetoric, no wonder Kim Jong-un doesn't want to get rid of the only deterrence his country has against U.S. invasion.
Yeah,
right.
What should be added to that demand is the technological not the technology, just the technology, not the actual planes and bombs and things like that, just the technology to build it themselves in exchange as well, because then they would have a deterrent to a U.S. invasion.
So the situation last year was, Trump pitched Kim Jong-un on this vision of greater economic strength for North Korea, which isn't false, right? Like if the sanctions were lifted against North Korea and it was easier for people around the world to do business with North Korea, then that would certainly help them economically. So that much is true. And so they were trying to appeal to Kim Jong-un's sense of wanting to be seen as a good leader of North Korea, beyond just the brainwashing that has gone on there amongst the people, but to actually have brought prosperity or to have assisted in allowing people to be prosperous in North Korea was kind of the pitch that they were making to him.
I mean, doesn't this seem kind of weird to you, given that he's a dictator?
What do you mean?
I mean, how do you be a good dictator?
Well, I mean, you can actually argue that a benevolent dictator is a better situation than democracy.
I think you're right, but
he's not a good one.
I mean, how many dictators can you point to in history and say that was a good dictator?
No, you can't point to many of them, but there is supposedly the Prince of Liechtenstein is pretty libertarian. That's what I've heard.
Well, the president of a it's like this is during the Cold War, I think there's many of many of them relatively, where you had like the president of the Philippines who was just able to maintain order, and you had there used to be a dictatorship in South Korea, and they made sure back when South Korea was less developed than North Korea, it was under a dictatorship. And some would even say that Chile was able to stabilize itself with Augusto Pinochet at the helm compared to the socialist there. So I mean, like, good dictators, like, they've all obviously done terrible things, right, in order to either get to power and stay in power. But it's what they do. Like, if they stabilize things, I mean, some would even say Saddam Hussein compared to like what we have now, ISIS and the radicals was a good.
I want to know what leader period has not done bad things in their quest to seek power in the first place.
Ron Paul.
Whether
well, he wasn't a leader,
maybe.
He was a representative.
Well, they all call the news media calls all these people leaders.
I mean, right? whether you're elected, or whether you take charge violently, I'm not entirely sure that there isn't a.
They've all got blood on their hands, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to point out here. It's like, okay, so you got elected. Okay, so there was no blood in getting elected, but then you went to war and you killed more people than the dictators do usually. Yeah. So it's like, I
mean, Trump's a killer too. He's ordered,
for sure.
He's ordered drones dropping bombs on people in the Middle East, and by no means has he been the peace president that he promised to be. But that said, I don't think there's anything wrong with pointing out when a politician gets something right. And, Obama got a few things right, like when he let some people out of prison toward the end of his term, including Chelsea Manning, for instance.
That's right.
So, I mean, Obama got a few things right. Trump has gotten a few things right. The meeting with Kim Jong-un in 2018 was a good one, and they signed an accord and intended to move towards denuclearization, and they did shut down one facility from what I understand, but of course the argument was they were going to do it anyway or whatever.
We've had this we had this with Clinton though too, so it's not.
No, you didn't. Not with North Korea.
Didn't Clinton?
No one
before
would say
Trump. He helped them, in fact.
No one before
I thought
Trump.
we had an agreement with North Korea.
Prior,
but it was
president,
but it's not a good one.
No president before Trump. There was an agreement North Korea didn't honor in the past with the U.S., but Clinton never met with anybody from North Korea.
I wasn't suggesting
that. They never met the president. More coming up. Free Talk Live. You can dial in, toll-free number 855-450-FREE. We can talk more on the way about Trump, Kim Jong-un, and their second big meeting that happened this week. Of course, we'll take your calls and thoughts about what you want. Free Talk Live is brought to you by Bitcoin.com. If you are interested in learning the basics about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, it's not too late. I know it's been a decade already since Bitcoin came out, but it's still pretty early on in everything. If you think about how long credit cards have been around or how long checks have been around, gold and silver, I mean, for instance, those things have been around forever.
Yeah, weren't credit cards around since like the 1920s?
Really? I thought 30s? They started in the 50s, but I wouldn't know.
Might be. It might be the 50s. It was. I just remember it was a really long time ago.
It's a long time. Yeah, before all of our lifetimes.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah.
So 10 years in the scheme of money, it's not a long time.
Nothing
so
at
we're
all.
Still early on in this whole Bitcoin thing. And remember, you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin. In fact, they're divisible down to 8 points. So learn the basics. You probably don't know enough about it if you're brand new. Go to Bitcoin.com. They've got a good Bitcoin Academy there. Plus, they've got the latest news headlines. You can engage with the community on the Bitcoin forum. There's also information on how to choose a Bitcoin wallet, buy some Bitcoin, and how you can spend it as well at Bitcoin.com. As we go to the phones and to the fun, let's talk to David in New Hampshire, listening online. Go ahead, David.
Gentlemen, how are you?
Hey, what's on your mind?
Well, there is apparently a new push to decriminalize sex work in New Hampshire.
Really?
So I guess 2 years, maybe 4 years ago, Elizabeth Edwards, a Free Stater who was elected to the legislature, I think she moved it forward a little bit, maybe was part of a bill.
Yeah, she put a couple of bills forward to do some decrim on prostitution.
I feel like I've been to one of the meetings.
You might have
at some point or other.
It didn't pass, unfortunately, but it got a conversation started, and it's important for somebody to do that. She is not in that office anymore. She decided she didn't want to run again for a third term. So, what's going on now?
Well, it's developed. There's follow-up. I guess there is an organization called Decriminalize Sex Work, and they have set up an office in Concord or somewhere in New Hampshire, and they have two lobbyists, official, hired lobbyists now that are going to try and work and make this move a little bit forward. I guess they've sort of made the same discovery that the Free Staters made the hard way, and that is you want freedom, you don't go through the Democratic Party to get it. It seems like the Republican Party is the way to go, so they hired two Republican lobbyists, or at least Republican-tied lobbyists, to be the ones to push this forward.
Well, I mean, obviously the Democrats in New Hampshire are a stronghold. They've got a lot of power, and they're well organized. But I don't think that means that liberty-minded folks or libertarians who move here shouldn't get involved in the Democratic Party. I mean, the more that we can water them down, the better. I mean, that's the way the Democrats and the Republicans have been treating the libertarians at the national level for years, is they've been invading the Libertarian Party. So there's nothing wrong with us doing the same thing, I think, to both of the parties. Let's turn them both more pro-freedom.
I feel like the Democrats used to be better, and they've just gotten really lousy over the years. And now it's like, they're really hostile to freedom. It's I don't know. Seems like the opposite has occurred over the years, and the Republicans used to be more hostile to freedom.
Well, the Republicans in other places are certainly pretty hostile towards freedom, but in New Hampshire they do tend to be more freedom friendly.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, some of the things I've seen the Democrats try and push through in bills have been really pretty hostile to freedom.
I think they just passed an income tax recently, if I'm not mistaken.
They're trying to tax businesses, I believe, now, right?
It wouldn't surprise me. I think there already is some kind of business tax.
Yeah, there is. But it's like they're trying to raise it or something.
So, David, what is exactly the proposal that's being made? Is there a piece of legislation, or is the news that there's now a lobbying group?
I haven't seen any legislation. The union leader article about this kind of made it sound ominous, as authoritarians are wont to do when a liberty idea is first proposed. Oh my God, the children! But within over time, the more it comes up, the more it gets mainstream, and eventually, oh yeah, we all thought that way the whole time. We were never against this. Mm-hmm. So it's just going to be a process of 10 or 15 years probably, and eventually I think we'll see something happen.
Yeah, unfortunately, you're right. That's probably how long these things take.
Slow going.
If you look at like medical marijuana, for instance, it was probably a 10 to 15 year at least long process where basically you have to educate these octogenarian, septuagenarian state representatives and explain to them that, hey, look, there's no victim over here. These people aren't. They're not slaves. They're not sex trafficked. They're not, doing this against their will. There's this misconception that's very common within politics that everybody who's a prostitute's there because some pimp's got a gun to her head.
Well,
it's not true.
There's a lobby on the other side that's trying to criminalize it. So, and that's why we have the problems that we do. I mean, think about all the money that's going into the policing industry, right? Mm-hmm. Where do you think those people? How do you think those people keep their jobs? It's by promoting this fear, whether it's marijuana or it's sex.
Right.
They have to keep promoting the fear because otherwise, they're not going to have a job or they're not going to be able to work the overtime. And that's so we continue to see them lobby for this.
The cops want to keep their power. They absolutely do. And they're willing to lie in order to keep their power. Thanks, Dave, for the call tonight. That's Dave Ridley from RidleyReport.com. Let's go to Bill. He's listening to KABQ, now airing us live on weeknights in Albuquerque. Hello, Bill. You're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, how are you? I just wanted to, talk a little bit about, I listen to a lot of talk radio.
All right.
One thing that I notice is that all the radio hosts that I hear, they allow the talking points to stay at the point of mention and never follow through with it.
What do you mean by that? Can you give me an example?
I'll give you an example. You just said that Trump went to North Korea in 2018 and he signed a treaty. Well, he didn't sign a treaty. He wanted to sign a treaty. He signed a paper, but the treaty never became true.
I don't. If I use the term treaty, I'd like to apologize. I think I thought I meant to say agreement.
I don't think that's what you said.
They had
an agreement, but that's not a. You were kind of giving him kudos, which I appreciate your candor to do that, but he didn't do anything. He went over there, had dinner, signed a paper. Nothing happened out of it. So I think it's important to follow through with it. And
when you say nothing happened out of it, I mean you do know that they took down the propaganda speakers on both sides of the southern and northern Korean DMZ. That North Korea actually moved their time zone back to match up with South Korea's time zone, which was a ridiculous, symbolic thing that they changed several years ago. They let go 3 prisoners of war from North Korea to the United States. So I mean, it's not just you can't really say that nothing has happened.
Well, but couldn't Mike Pompeo have gone over there and done that?
I don't know. Trump wanted to go do it. Who cares? What's the matter?
Maybe you can make the
argument. Let me give you a better example. When Republicans say that we're going to take their guns away, nobody has ever said that. Has ever said we're going to come and take everybody's guns, and that's what they pitch all day long, every day, and all that.
Well, Dianne Feinstein said she'd like to see that happen. She says if they had enough votes, they would have been a door-to-door confiscation.
I'm saying the Democratic base. You and me. We're not saying that.
All right. I want you to hang on, Bill, because stand by here if you want. I'd like to continue the conversation because, I think it's interesting. Appreciate hearing from you. So hang on. More with Bill, hopefully, here in just a moment. 855-450, free like freedom. He's saying the Democratic base doesn't want to take people's guns away. Is that true? Well, I mean, everybody's an individual, so maybe he doesn't want to, but he's not a politician. So we're coming up here. It's Free Talk Live.
Bitcoin.com wants you to know about SaveItPurse.com. Since launching in 2014, over 200,000 users have saved an average of 15% for a combined $4 million using Bitcoin, or BTC. And now you can use Bitcoin Cash, BCH, to fund your account. You can save between 5 to 33% on things you're going to buy anyway when you shop using SaveItPurse.com. Add items to your cart, fund your account, select your discount, and save. SaveItPurse.com. Save ATPurse.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Dial toll free and take control of the airwaves here. Whether you want to talk about the Trump-Kim Jong summit that fell short of some expectations, That happened this week. We can continue that discussion or whatever's on your mind. Our number is 855-450, free like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. Also, the Discord on-air call-in line rooms are open and available to you over at discord.lrn.fm. With you tonight, it's Ian.
It's Vincent.
And Chris.
And Liberty.menu is exclusively for individuals who reject the initiation of force and those who agree to abide by the ethics of the non-aggression principle. If that describes you, you ought to go over to Liberty.menu, where you can put in the things that you do. Maybe you're a digital content creator, maybe you organize an event, or maybe you're a business person and you want new liberty-minded folks to come into your business. This is a good way to get those folks' attention. Go to Liberty.menu and you can list yourself there. It's totally free, so we can't give you a discount because it's free, but you can use code FTL to get a special listener badge on Liberty.menu. As we go back to Bill in Albuquerque listening to KABQ. Bill, you'd called in mentioning something about talking points, and I'm not really sure the point you were driving at, but I wanted to make sure you had a chance to really get your thoughts out there. So please, go ahead.
Well, the point is that we allowed them to, or the Republicans, to say things that are talking points. We're going to take your guns. We're going to give you free stuff all the time. Climate change doesn't exist. The healthcare is the government control. All these things, and that's not the truth. That's not what we're saying. We're saying we want healthcare. But
now hold on. Let me clarify something here. When you say we're not saying these things, are you speaking for more than one person? Are you speaking for a group of people?
I'm speaking for what I hear from Democrats all over the place. Nobody has ever said we're going to take the guns. We want the guns taken away from people that are mentally sick, that people that have.
But who decides?
AK-47s with. What do you mean?
Who decides?
The politicians
right?
decide.
You're going to let politicians decide who's mentally sick? I mean, you're putting the sick in charge of the sick. In that case.
No. Well, the doctor decides who's mentally sick, and that person can't buy a gun.
That's not how it actually works in practice.
What do you mean?
I mean, look at New Hampshire. I mean, I don't know what it's like elsewhere, but I know in a lot of places you end up going to like the sheriff or some sort of local police that has to like approve or disapprove whether or not you can get a gun.
Okay, but why do they insist on not having background checks? What's the problem with background checks? 80% of people say, sure, have background checks.
Well, I'd like to see those numbers, but I mean, for most people I know who oppose background checks, is because it's a backdoor for registry.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? Backdoor for registry?
Well, I mean, like, if every time you buy a gun, say, like, I think this new House bill, it says if you buy it from a private person or online, you need a background check. So by having, your name, some sort of database, your name, it says, what you're buying, if you have a criminal record. Through each background check, they could catalog each person who buys a gun, what sort of gun, where they live, and yeah, it's just it's just too much of a liability for. Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
Well, it's because if in the event of it when there's a martial law, or they just want to get rid of dissidents, then they have a list of every single gun owner in the county or in the state or everywhere. Actually, that's what they want.
Who has this list? Where's the?
Well, the government would have it. I think it's Nick's.
When did martial law come into the equation?
Well, I mean, that's exactly what they're going to do if martial law is ever declared. They're going to see everyone who has a gun, and then they're going to go and confiscate it or kill them.
Well, I mean, it's not unheard of for the government in the United States to use lists to go after people, right? I mean, they rounded up Japanese Americans and German Americans back in World War II. Did you support that too, Bill?
No, I don't support that. Of course
you don't support that. Okay, good.
But
don't you think it's a bad thing to give governments information about people? Because governments, they're violent. They hurt peaceful people. That's not okay, is it?
Yeah, most of the lists we have are bad, and it's not just these lists; it's other lists as well.
I've been in this country for 42 years. When has the government come after people to hurt them? I don't understand.
Oh, they do it every day. I mean, there's 50,000 no-knock raids against people, mostly peaceful people across the United States on the claim that they have drugs.
There are lists out there that, with good intent, but they actually have been used to harm people that they were intended to help.
How about the sex offender lists that are putting...
I come from a country that has no rules and no government, and people do whatever the hell they want.
Where is this?
The government has
sign me up.
The government has to be in. What's that?
I said, where is this? Where's
sign
this?
You.
Huh?
I'm from Colombia.
You're claiming Colombia has no government.
Well, they have government. Yeah, they have laws and they have the pretty Senate and the whole thing. But nobody follows the rules because there's no enforcement, there's no regulation, there is no government to enforce it because you pay somebody $50 and they can do whatever they want to do.
Oh, so what you're saying is the government's there. It's just that they're more obvious about being willing to take a bribe.
Yeah.
Okay. So just because the government in the United States is better about hiding the fact that they're willing to take bribes, that makes you think that there's a government here, but there's not one there?
I'm not saying that they don't take bribes here. I'm saying that here, the government, the part of it that works very well.
What part works?
Right,
Give me an example.
So you're...
I want to hear an example of what part works, and it works well.
The transportation system, the education system, the health.
Okay, let's just take one of them. You want to start with transportation? I mean, what part do you think works well? Are the roads in really good shape there in Albuquerque?
Perfect shape.
Really? That's pretty amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah. I lived in Minneapolis. I lived in Minneapolis for 15 years. Perfect.
Yeah, whew, that's amazing. Maybe we were living in the wrong place here, guys, because the roads are crap here in every place I've ever been.
Well, we do live in a very socialist part of New Hampshire.
New Hampshire's obvious. Well, it's because of the winter and potholes and everything.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the roads weren't in great shape down in Florida either.
Well, we have a frequent caller who always complains.
But hold on. Are you saying, though, Bill, that people can't build roads without the government? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because the government sets the regulation on how a road in New Hampshire is exactly as a road in Albuquerque.
There's lots of private roads out there. And a lot of the roads that were built, interstate roads that were built, before the government got involved were toll roads, and they were private as well.
And the government took them.
Yeah, they were. And were they as good as today?
Yeah, they were. They're better than they are today.
Well, they probably weren't.
I mean, to the extent that
I want to talk about the education part, but I'll wait.
we can get
through
to that.
Transportation first.
So
okay, let me give. Can I give you a website?
Sure. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, let me go to this website.
Does it end in .gov?
Read what I think. It's called Progressivism for Dummies.
Okay.
.com.
Well, what am I going to learn there?
Progressivism for Dummies. Take a look. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying.
Is that a veiled insult? I'm not sure what you're.
No. So for dummies, it's like a handbook guide where it's like a simple. You have a simple things.
Okay. Why are you so defensive with the martial law and everything? My God.
What? Hold on.
Why are you so defensive? There's no insult anywhere.
You're the one defending the government, dude. I mean, I'm not sure what you're talking about defensive. You're the one defending institutionalized coercion against your neighbors. That's what you're doing.
I'm not defending the government at all.
You just told me that it's because of the government that we have, supposedly great roads and great education and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Do you really believe that it's the government is why people are getting a good education in the United States?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Vincent, you said you wanted to address.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've not only just been recently in the U.S. education system, I also work in it, and I think I'll do just a quick sample here. According to the Department of Education, there's 32 million adults in the United States who can't read.
Yeah.
And 50% of U.S. adults can't. 50% of U.S. adults can't read a book written at an 8th grade level. So, the Department of Education, the government's in charge of everyone's education, right? Unless you opt out to homeschool or go to a private school, most people receive a government education, and so you have all these people who are illiterate.
I must live in a bubble then because somehow I must live in a bubble because the roads here are perfect. My daughter is an attorney. My other daughter is an anthropologist. They went to the public school. They went to the University of New Mexico, which is a public school.
How much do I bet he lives in a private gated community?
I do suggest you leave your bubble and see.
Hang on, Bill. I'll give you another chance. I enjoy a good challenge here, so if you want to stand by, you can. If not, I understand. More coming up here, possibly with Bill on Free Talk Live, 855 450 free, like freedom. It's Free Talk Live. You can dial in toll-free and bring up whatever you want here. Our number is 855-450, free like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. Look, I got plenty of bad things to say about Donald Trump. I mean, like I said earlier, he has, ordered people to be murdered by the U.S. military, just as his predecessors, Barack Obama and George W. Bush did, and, of course, other presidents before that. as well. So, I mean, by no means is he a peace president, as he promised that he would be. But I said something nice about him coming through with the meeting with Kim Jong-un last year. I thought that was it seemed like the right thing to do. It was the first time an American president had ever actually met with anybody of the supreme leader of North Korea, and it seemed to go pretty well, all things considered. So I think talking's better than not talking, generally.
Oh, yeah.
But that seemed to upset Bill, who's on the line here from Albuquerque. I'm going to continue because he stuck with us here, and I appreciate the continued conversation. It's nice to have a good challenge here on the air. And Bill, you were saying just before we went to break that you must live in a bubble because the education is wonderful there in Albuquerque. The roads are perfect.
I did not say wonderful. I did not say wonderful.
Okay.
I'm saying the education is good.
It's good.
The education,
it's good.
Well, let me put it. It's not bad. The
Okay.
education is fine. The kids go through school through a system, that has put some rules in place, and they teach them some stuff.
It's super creepy. I just saw a series of photos from my old high school. I've been out of high school for 20 years, basically, at this point. But the campus is still down there where I went. I'm from Florida originally. And the campus has been now adorned with huge metallic barriers. It used to be a very wide open campus. It was like one of these campuses where there was no hallways. It's just like sort of like a building and then connected to another building by an overpass. You can cut through a big field, and it's very, very open, or at least it was. Apparently, recent years have resulted in them installing ridiculous metal barricades through what were previously the very kind of wide open pathways in this school, and it's basically become a locked down fortress. Is that something that makes you feel good?
No, that is something that's absolutely asinine because they are trying to stop some guy with a gun to come in and shoot all the kids someday, and they're not going to do it because the guys, if they want to get in there, he's going to find a way in.
That's absolutely true.
That is.
So we agree on that part, that basically these schools are actually turning into shooting galleries for psychopaths, because right now all these metal gates are going to do is keep kids inside the school if they want to happen to, I don't know, escape during a mass shooting or something
Ian,
like that.
Not everywhere. I mean, like in New Hampshire, has the highest per capita gun ownership, or at least there's just a lot of guns in New Hampshire. And most schools, maybe in Manchester, maybe aside from the cities, most schools don't have any of that. Like I had open campus in my high school.
That's true.
Right?
They're not all like that yet, but they're getting that way.
Blaming the gun, it just doesn't work.
No, I'm blaming the government because they're the ones that are creating these essentially day prisons for children. And while some people can get a decent education if they pay enough attention and they luck out and they get some semi-decent teachers, what we can't compare is what it would be like without the current system that we have. We can't compare apples to oranges. We don't have two separate timelines, to know exactly how much better a marketplace in education would be. But that's what I advocate, because I don't, under any circumstances, Bill, as somebody who likes the idea of progressing towards liberty, I don't actually want to use violence against my neighbors. Do you?
Of course not.
No.
But
okay.
When you say liberty, what do you define that as?
Didn't you just say that you want to take away people's guns, though?
No, he didn't say that.
Oh, he didn't.
He said he doesn't want to take away people's guns.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. That's right. Okay.
So we agree on that.
Right.
He does want the government to take away some people's guns, like he said, crazy people.
Well, that's use of violence.
Well, yeah, and that's a problem.
But
so
you're advocating the use of violence.
I think you advocate liberty as let us do whatever the hell we want and let the government just.
No, because we're against the use of violence. I think all three of us.
No. I'm in favor of defensive violence.
Right. I'm sorry. Outside of defensive violence, I meant.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's necessarily the case.
Okay, but what Mitt Romney used to say about self-government, that is not something that can exist.
Why would anyone listen to Mitt Romney's opinion about self-government? I mean, he's an a-hole.
Well,
he's like a progressive Republican too. So I imagine, he was.
I'm just saying that that's what Republicans say when they say, let's take back our country. have the liberty that the founding fathers, they keep quoting the founding fathers.
Who wants that? Because those people didn't even recognize blacks as full human beings. I mean, I don't think anybody that wants to go back to the founding fathers has really thought very hard about it.
Ian, hold on now. That's your public school Florida education speaking for you there. I mean, it's like that verse. If it was the three-fifths of a person, that was because of that was to balance out the slave population's voting proportionality in the House with the.
Well, they also wouldn't let women vote either, so you can't really say those people were progressive. I mean, they might have been more progressive than for the time. They might have been more so than King George. Okay, but still, also the Muslims were more progressive than the pagans. At their time as well. So I mean, I could acknowledge, in its time, some things are a step in the right direction. But now we should be able to look at the government as a coercive agency, as a monopoly on coercive force. And you're not in favor of monopolies, are you, Bill?
I am not in favor of monopolies.
Okay, good. No. So we're on the same page there. So we're on the same page on a lot of things. But as a liberty-minded person, I am somebody, as someone progressing towards liberty, I don't think that I think that people's choices need to be respected for themselves. As long as you're not harming another human being, then you should be allowed to live how you want, shouldn't you?
Yes, and like abortion, being gay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Abortion is harming a human being.
Well, now that's an argument that we can have another time. But as far as I agree with you, if it's your body, you get to decide what to do with it.
If you go to the topics on that website, those are the topics that constantly get addressed against the Democrats, as if they want to have this control over people, and they don't.
Oh, yes, they do. The Republicans and the Democrats want to have control over people. That's why they run for political office. That's the whole purpose of running for political office, is to control their neighbors. It's sick. Honestly, it's a real sickness when somebody cannot just allow other people to be free.
I don't agree with you on that.
You don't think it's sick to want to control your neighbors? Because I think so. What's wrong? What is right about wanting to tell your neighbors how to live?
If my neighbor has a 50-round whatever, I don't know anything about guns, but one of those magazines that holds 200 bullets.
You mean like a drum? Okay? You mean like a drum magazine?
I don't want him to have it.
Why not?
Because at one point somebody's going to get a hold of that gun and do some damage.
That's pretty paranoid.
See, this is
there's hundreds of millions of guns in the United States, and most of them are not.
This is what they call FUD. You're being used.
Fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Yeah, fear, uncertainty, doubt. Right. So they're scaring you into a position that is not based off rational, logical arguments. There are a lot of risks out there, but having a gun, your neighbor having a gun, is not one of the major risks in your life.
It's actually probably going to increase your likelihood of safety if your neighbor has a gun. If something bad happens, he could come to your aid.
I'm not even going to go that far. I'm just going to say it's
safety if you have a gun yourself.
When has anybody with a gun come to the aid of somebody else in Aurora or in Florida or in any of these?
Are you actually bringing up? Hold on. Are you actually bringing up school shootings as an example of when somebody with a gun didn't show up?
Aurora was a movie theater.
Yeah, or in Las Vegas, where there was 4,000 people there. When did somebody come with a gun and kill the guy that was shooting everybody up? Never.
Well, no, hold on now. It absolutely has happened. There was a church shooting in Texas, and someone went in, shot up a church, and one of the neighbors or someone had a rifle and chased the shooter.
That's right. I believe helped apprehend them.
So I mean, you have to remember that there's places that you can't take guns into, and thus only the person with the gun who's trying to commit violence is going to have the gun.
The person willing to break the laws.
Right, exactly. So you're only allowing the law breakers to actually possess the guns. And that's why you end up a lot of times with these situations where you have these mass shootings in schools and in movie theaters and so on.
Law breakers, because if they had a list of who has the guns, they would go and get them from them.
How are you going to
But
get a
it
gun that's
is
been
good.
printed,
I'm not
that's been
saying
3D printed, or it's been drilled using other techniques, or has been, mailed, interstate commerce
By
or
definition, if
international
you're
commerce?
Well, that's what they want.
I mean, the idea that you're going to not be, you're going to be able to stop somebody is utterly ridiculous. There's
By
other
definition,
types of
if you're a
weapons.
lawbreaker, you're willing to break the law.
Right.
So therefore, you're willing to go ahead and buy a gun from, let's say, a cartel or somebody else who's willing to sell it to you illegally. And so therefore, taking guns away doesn't actually do anything to affect the real psychopaths.
It just pushes it underground.
Thank you, Bill. I think that's been an interesting conversation. I would invite you to call any time with your perspective. I appreciate hearing from you. Plus, again, whether it's drugs or it's guns or whatever other thing we're talking about, underage alcohol or, prostitution, all these things are things that people should be able to possess and do on their own volition. There's more coming up here. Free Talk Live.
Go to themorganreport.com and receive updates and insights you will not find anywhere else on the web. You will discover how to grow and protect your wealth under all market conditions. The Free Morgan Report provides interviews, webinars, question and answer sessions, plus mind-blowing videos. As David Morgan says, let my passion create your wealth. TheMorganReport.com. TheMorganReport.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. You can dial toll-free to bring up whatever is on your mind. Our number here is 855-450. Free like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. Also, we've got the Discord on-air call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm. Coming up, the Huawei case that Chris has a story on. We'll talk about that coming up here. We got more on Trump and Kim Jong-un's meeting from this week. Plus, Alex Jones has apparently patched things up with Joe Rogan after having a podcast spat between one another, and you for whatever reason you want to talk about that, Vincent, so we can get into
Well,
that.
it pertains more to Bitcoin, which is why I brought it up.
Oh, right, because Jones is claiming that George Soros offered him $5 million to pimp Bitcoin.
Pump Bitcoin.
Well, same thing.
Yeah, right?
Right. And I'm like, wow, when can we get our $5 million on Free Talk Live? Hello, where's George Soros when you need him? Let's go to Herbert in Rhode Island, listening on our Twitch feed, which is the way you can watch us actually online over at twitch.lrn.fm. Go ahead, Herbert. You're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, hey, man, it's Rev. I was going to do the Herbert from Family Guy prank, but I'm actually legit pissed off at this previous caller. I actually want to have a little real conversation. I apologize to call in as me, but I want to do that real quick.
Okay, that's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm sure this guy was a nice guy and he meant well. That's the problem, though, right? The road to hell is always paved with the best meaning intentions.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy is a butthole because, at least with some Antifa communist butthole throws bottles of urine and rocks at old people and anybody even remotely to the right of them, at least you know where they stand, right? At least you know where neo-Nazis and Atomwaffen and gas the blanks, race war now type stand, right? This guy, dude, really freaking angers me, and it's hard to anger me, Ian and Vincent and Chris. Hello to all of you, and I'll show up to let you reply. But it's hard to piss me off, man. But it's just like, I'm not against freedom. I'm for freedom. I don't want to restrict anybody's rights to do anything. But it's like, I don't want my neighbor to have 200 rounds in his.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that somebody in that position is confused. Okay, so there were a few things that we agreed with him on. He at one point said he didn't want to use violence against his neighbor, but then he did say that he wanted to prevent his neighbor from having a big, a lot of rounds in a magazine living next door to him. So when I think we didn't get a chance to get to, even though I'd had him on for a couple segments, so I wanted to move on, bring some other voices, on the air. But, I'll have somebody on if they don't agree, if it's a good conversation, if people aren't shouting over top of one another. And I thought that we had that with him. It was a pretty good conversation. But if I had the chance, I would have gotten to, explain that, well, you can't really hold these viewpoints together. You can't hold the viewpoint that you don't support using violence against your neighbor, aggressive violence against your neighbor, and then say that you want your neighbor to not have a thing. Because in order for that to be the case, you have to use violence against them to prevent them, or at least the threat of violence to prevent them from having the thing that they want, whether that be a 200-round drum magazine for, for an AK-47, or whether that be, 5 marijuana plants in his closet. I mean, to me, it's just a thing.
It's like Ian can say anything he wants about me, right? But if he makes fun of one thing about me, then I'm going to have the shoulder burst into the Liberty Radio studios and take him and Jazzy away. But I'm for freedom. He's like that piece of garbage, Alex Jones, and I know that he's told the show, but it's the same thing. Not that I would ever impersonate him, right? But I'm for liberty, I'm for peace, I'm for blah, blah, blah. And then, like Vincent pointed out, dude, this scumbag, he used to make videos about how the left and the right are both propped up by the same elites at the top, which those of us from the far and racial right would recognize as the Zionists, which we won't get into. But the point is, dude, now if Trump declares martial law and puts anal cameras, like Jesse Ventura said, up all of us and our kids and wives' butts, it's good. Don't resist Trump.
What you're saying is Alex Jones has become the thing that he wants to, or that he at one time preached against. Thank you for the call, Rev. Appreciate it.
It's like what David Icke said. He's a conservative Fox News.
Who, Alex?
Yeah, David
He said
Icke.
that about Alex?
Yeah, or it was implied to be Alex Jones. He didn't say him by name, but it was in a discussion with Luke Rudowski, referred to him as the alternative Fox News.
I actually saw David Icke in Acapulco. He had a 4-hour-long seminar, basically. It wasn't just a speech. He was on a stage for 4 hours with like 2 15-minute-long breaks.
Oh, he's a very talented guy. He started as a sports broadcaster.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah, in the 80s. He was like a popular BBC sports broadcaster, and then he went into, I guess, the current stuff he talks about.
Yeah, I didn't watch the whole 4 hours. I only went in for like maybe 15 minutes, sort of halfway through, and then I did go and watch his last basically 20 or 30 minutes. I watched him wrap it up. And what I saw in the early part was kind of like the typical kind of conspiracy theory. They're going to, try to control all your minds with this, some kind of internet of things or whatever.
Well, I mean, that's what they're trying to do, definitely. Yeah, trying to control everyone's mind using the internet and pop culture.
But to his credit, he ended on a positive note, which was kind of like he has a very similar metaphysical viewpoint to mine. I wouldn't say that our religion is exactly the same, but it seems very, very similar. It rings very true to me, some of the things that he says about, the things that are on the outside of us are actually being manifested from within. And I kind of like those ideas. So he had some cool stuff to say. I did get a chance to actually meet him briefly. A couple nights later, I invited him to be on Free Talk Live, and he told his agent to set it up, but it never ended up happening. So, oh well. Anyway, the toll-free number here, 855-450-FREE.
You guys were too crazy and out there for David Icke.
Right.
That's great.
We go to, right. So we were, yeah. Let's go to Sarah. She's here with us in New Mexico. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yes, I really would love to ban all of the soda pop commercials on the. I mean, where do they have it? I've seen many commercials on television ever since I was
Hey, Sarah,
little.
Sarah, how about we make a deal? How about you can ban the soda pop and we can let's see, we'll ban you and you can ban the soda pop. Like, well, it'll be like an agreement, right?
You want to ban her from what? Free Talk Live?
Yeah, like you won't come in and we won't have any soda pop commercials on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, but I kind of like Sarah's calls.
I do like Sarah though. I do like her calls, but like.
I think overall Sarah's a good caller. Like, even though she's every night, she's actually pretty decent. She brings up some good issues. Like,
but I guess the point is I don't really want to
ban soda
her.
like Sarah.
Right. I know, but like, I guess I'm trying to make a point in what I'm trying to say here is that you kind of have to give and take a little, right? So, Sarah, if you want to
you're saying compromise. You're saying she would need to compromise,
right? So you give up calling Free Talk Live, and we'll give up.
But I don't want to make that deal. First of all, we don't have any soda pop commercials on Free Talk Live, so that's not a very fair deal, Chris. And I presume you knew that going into it.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. But Sarah, so what do you think? You really think that it's all the advertising is going to, if you got rid of soda pop advertising, that it would lower the usage of it?
Well, obviously, yeah. I mean, yes, it will.
You don't think people could tell each other, like, hey, I really like this Sprite stuff. It's pretty good. You don't think that word of mouth would actually continue to spread the use of sugary drinks?
Well, I mean, has it been successful? People guzzle down like.
Yeah, but all that advertising. Look, as somebody who does radio for a living, I've been in radio for my entire adult life since I was a teenager. Basically, I've been in radio. So I'd like to think I know a thing or two about advertising. when you have a good advertising campaign, whether you're Coca-Cola or Pepsi or whoever it is we're talking about here, the purpose of that advertising campaign generally with those companies is branding. Everyone already knows that soda exists, but what they want you to do is they want you to think of their soda when you want a soda. When you think to yourself, I'd like a delicious fizzy sweet beverage.
Do you ever go in and ask for cola, or do you go in and ask for Coke or
Are you
Pepsi?
asking me or Sarah?
I'm asking Sarah.
Well, the only time I will drink soda is with a root beer float during the summertime. Maybe like once a month. That's it.
Okay. All right. So you're like me then, Sarah. I don't drink soda very often. I'm maybe a couple few a year. I'll grab like a ginger beer or something like that. In fact, I've been eyeing my roommate's ginger beer in the fridge now for several days. but it's been quite a while since I've had one. So my point here is that people are going to want sugary beverages because people want sugary sweet beverages, period.
They're good.
They're a lot of people really love them. And I don't think they're that concerned whether they have the brand name of Cola or Coca-Cola or Pepsi on them. I thank you for the call
Happy
here tonight.
first of a month, Sarah.
Oh, it's a welfare reference.
Oh, wow.
855-450 Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live. Dial toll-free here and bring up anything that you want. Our number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. And I'm happy to announce that finally the iOS app for AnyPay is available. It's been something that's been in the works now for a few months, and a lot of that time was just waiting on Apple to approve it, because that's the way the iOS store works, is they have to.
So they approved it.
They did.
Nice.
It's there. All you got to do is search for Take Crypto, AnyPay Take Crypto on your iOS App Store, and you can download the AnyPay app for your point-of-sale device. If you're a merchant, if you're somebody who wants to accept cryptocurrency at your point of sale, a lot of you guys are using the iOS iPad, the Apple iPad there at the point of sale, and so now you can use the AnyPay app easily, because you could use AnyPay before, but it had to be like through a web browser, and it was just a little bit more of a complex setup. Now it's super easy. You just go and download the app. But first, go to anypay.global, and you can set up there by creating a username and password. That's all you have to do. There's no application fee. There's no application. You just create username, password, put in your cryptocurrency wallet addresses in the back end, and then load the app at your point of sale. You're accepting Bitcoin. They're accepting Dash, Bitcoin Cash, Zcash, and others. It's a pretty sweet system. In fact, I heard they've added, I haven't checked it for myself, but I've heard they've added Smart Cash now as well. So go to anypay.global. And if you're a merchant, you ought to know this. There's no fee to accept cryptocurrency via AnyPay. Unlike credit cards where you're paying 3%, maybe even more percent, because as you pointed out, Chris, there's also the chargebacks with credit cards that you don't necessarily think of when you're just paying the 3% fee, because anytime you get a chargeback, you lose.
And if you're purchasing your merchandise with it too, a credit card, that's another 3% that you're paying on top, and
exactly,
it all adds up. It adds up to a lot more than most people realize, most businesses even realize.
Exactly, which is one of the reasons why you over at thinkpenguin.com also accept cryptocurrencies. So go to anypay.global if you've got a business and you want to start taking crypto. That's the best way to do it. And search. Also, it's on. I should also mention it's been on the Android App Store for a couple months. So now iOS, Android, just search for AnyPay Take Crypto on your app or Play Store, and you can get it there. As we continue, we'll take your calls and thoughts about what you want. You can bring up anything at 855-450-FREE like freedom. Donald Trump said he had to walk away at the press conference in Hanoi in Vietnam between him and Kim Jong-un, expressing hope that the two leaders would meet again, but acknowledged, quote, "It might be soon, it might not be for a long time, I can't tell you." He then got into this whole Michael Cohen thing where the former attorney for Trump has basically turned against him and was, I guess, being questioned earlier this week. Have you been paying attention to that, Vincent, the Michael Cohen thing at all?
Yeah, not too much. I mean, I don't like all of his political theater. I know. Right. I mean, the guy got in trouble for lying in the past, and yet
the attorney, you mean?
Yeah, Michael Cohen, and then now he's back, to back in Congress. So I think, it's just more of this. It's like a sideshow, just meant to distract people from the real problems. A witch hunt. I mean, it's exactly what Trump describes it as. It's a witch hunt Because they've been having this. Sorry to interrupt. They've been having this investigation looking for Russian collusion for years now, and no one's been arrested, or no American has been arrested or even accused of it. They've all been like people like Roger Stone, Jerome Corsi. They've all gotten in trouble for other things, and Michael Cohen himself. It had nothing to do with Russian collusion. It was some sort of tax issues and some schemes. So it's just it's a witch hunt.
Trump said he remains on good terms with Kim and continued to tout the, quote, enormous potential of North Korea, and notably said there were no plans for a next summit meeting. Trump candidly revealed that Kim wanted the sanctions off but was not willing to give up his array of nukes, missiles, and additional sites that he only alluded to vaguely. Quote, basically, they wanted the sanctions lifted in their entirety, and we couldn't do that, the president said. They were willing to denuke a large portion of the areas that we wanted, but we couldn't give up all the sanctions for that. He said we had to walk away from that suggestion. We had to walk away from that further. And, as far as negotiations are concerned, that's true. Sometimes you got to be willing to get up from the table and say, no deal, and walk. So maybe, I have hope that this can somehow work out in the favor of everybody, because I don't want to see sanctions on any country, whether it be Venezuela, whether it be Cuba, whether it be North Korea, Iran. I don't want to see sanctions on anybody because people should be free to trade with other people around the world.
Yeah, the problem with sanctions is that it depends on the use of violence to achieve those objectives on the people, on your people, not even on the opposing party here.
Right.
So.
If you wanted at thinkpenguin.com, where you sell privacy-oriented computer hardware, if you wanted to sell to Iran to help the people who are against the Iranian government, give them some good private computer hardware, you would be prohibited from doing that.
That's right.
Yeah, and even on the consumer side in the U.S., I mean, it'd be great if the sanctions ended. We were able to have trade of Korea, so I could get surplus Korean weapons and a Korean mail-order bride.
I don't think you would want. I don't think you would want the former.
What, via surplus? Well, no. They have all these weapons donated from the Soviets. And
okay.
No, not that they're made. I'm just saying AKs made by the Soviets. Just like, all these former Eastern Bloc countries are selling a lot of their Soviet surplus to
that's a good point.
Private market.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to even imagine how bad a North Korean gun would be if they'd tried to make their own gun, just because communism has failed miserably at making most things.
Except with the
AK-47
right?
is a real exception. It's a real shining star, but that's because it was made by one man. Right, like that was made by Kalashnikov was his last name, right?
Yeah, and they were inspired by a German weapon too, a Nazi German weapon, an STG-44. Yeah, so that was the first modern assault rifle.
My point is, you didn't put a committee in charge of it.
No.
You had one guy who made a good weapon, and it didn't matter.
Quickest way to fail.
So 855-450 free. We go to Parker in Washington, listening via online. Go ahead, Parker.
Hey guys, Murray Rothbard to you.
Okay. I don't get it.
It's tomorrow is the National Rothbard Day.
Never heard of it. I mean, I know that he's like a writer, libertarian writer. I know who the guy is, but never heard of there as a national day it's named after him.
It's his birthday tomorrow, and I like to celebrate his birthday. I also like to celebrate my birthday, which happens to be on the same day. So
okay.
Well, happy birthday.
Congratulations. So what were you calling about?
Just wanting to tell you guys about National Rothbard Day and wish you guys a Murray Rothbard.
That was it?
One thing that I've had an idea for a while, I called earlier this week or sometime last week, and there was a podcast I was listening to last night, the Everything Voluntary podcast, where the host he was talking about how Blackmail, in terms of things that are not an act of aggression, things that you wouldn't want people to know about, that should be morally and legally acceptable. In that,
why would that be morally acceptable?
well, if not morally acceptable, then legally acceptable, because you're essentially saying, hey, I know about X, Y, or Z secrets.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I don't think that it should be a crime. I thank you for the call tonight. Toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE, but it is
there should be
immoral.
I think there should be consequences
for blackmail?
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. Coming up here in moments. The toll-free number 855-450-FREE, 855-450-3733. You can bring up what you want here. This is Free Talk Live.
Business owners, you want more customers? Accept cryptocurrencies. There's people all around you just waiting to spend money at your store. If only you would take it. I know, you've been waiting till someone else makes it easy. Well, good news. HelpMeTakeBitcoin.com adds Bitcoin to your point of sale, totally free. Use the same equipment you already have, now with Bitcoin. And unlike credit cards, there's no fees. Let the guys at HelpMeTakeBitcoin.com bring new customers to your store. HelpMeTakeBitcoin.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can dial in toll-free here at 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Tonight, it's Ian.
It's Vincent.
And Chris.
Don't forget, you can join us online over at freetalklive.com. We have a lot of features on our site, and they are free, including the Twitch video stream. You can go to twitch.lrn.fm. We're getting closer to 700 followers there on Twitch, so if you don't mind, give us a follow on Twitch, and if you have the Twitch app installed on your phone, then it'll give you a heads up when the stream goes live, which isn't just for Free Talk Live. We also have the Call to Freedom, which is another show that you're on, Chris.
I am.
Tuesdays on Call to Freedom, another great weekday show that's on the Liberty Radio Network. And then, Vincent, your show on Saturday nights, Questioning Authority, also is on our Twitch feed. So go to twitch.lrn.fm. You can follow us there. And like I said, if you've got the app, then it helps you know when we're on. Or you can have it send you emails if you prefer. Twitch.lrn.fm. And there's a chat room on Twitch, but there's a better chat room on our Discord server, so keep that in mind as well. Over at discord.lrn.fm. So we continue here with your phone calls and thoughts, but first, let's talk a little bit about the blackmail suggestion. We just had a gentleman on the line say that he thought that blackmail should probably be legal, and that he considered it to be moral, but then he kind of took that one back when I called him on it, because I mean, it's generally not a moral thing to do to blackmail somebody. However, should it be a crime? Vincent, what were you going to say about it?
Well, I think that's I don't, according to my beliefs, I don't believe in retribution or revenge, or I ought not to. But I mean, I think that it's sort of what got inspired me to say something towards the end there is that a lot of people in the liberty community, or at least those who believe in the non-aggression principle, I've noticed a lot of them use the NAP,
the non-aggression principle.
Yes, the non-aggression principle to. I don't like to almost to an extent legalize bad behavior, because in regards to blackmail, right? Like normally if someone went up and tried to blackmail me or to anyone really, I think they'd want some sort of retribution or some sort of deterrence, right? But under, according to what he said, or what the podcast he was listening to said about the NAP, if someone, like let's say I'm in the closet or something, and someone goes up and says, if you don't give me $5,000, I'm gonna expose you to your church, your friends, your family. Then, there's nothing the person could do. It's just at their mercy. So, I mean, I think that I think that I consider it a threat, right? So if someone threatens to blackmail me, I think it would be not morally okay, but it would be what they deserve if I said, well, if you let go of that information, I will kill you. So it's not doing the violence, it's a threat. So it's a threat in response to a threat. You're saying
it's a threat to your reputation? Basically?
Well, it could threaten a lot of things. It could threaten reputation, property, in regards of loss of revenue if people decide to boycott, loss of status, and it could end up to a lot of people kill themselves. Unfortunately,
it seems like this is a more of an issue with the society than it is with maybe the blackmailer.
Well, that's just the example I came up with. But I'm saying there's blackmail in any society in regards to things. That's just the easiest.
But blackmail, I think, is dependent on society, right? So I mean, if something has to be socially unacceptable, so if something
if nobody cared that you were gay, then the blackmailer demanding $5,000 for that information.
I feel like the solution to the problem is to get society to change, not to say blackmail should be illegal. Maybe.
Well, there's your problem, trying to get society to change. I think in this case,
I'm not saying it's easy, but
in
what
this
in
case,
life
we're
is
talking
easy.
just about the the legalities and such of it, or the how it applies.
Well,
to
as far as it being a threat against your reputation, the thing is you don't own your reputation.
Yeah.
So this is one of the reasons why, when it comes to
you manage it, right? It's not a thing.
No, you don't.
Yes,
your reputation is completely out of your hands. You can do whatever you can to try to keep it.
Reputation is entirely in your hands. Because your
reputation
absolutely
exists in the minds of other people.
It does.
So you can do certain
lies
things.
could exist in other people. But in terms of reputation, what I do, I manage my reputation. If I
you can manage what you do in the hopes that your reputation won't suffer. But you cannot manage other people's thoughts about you.
Yeah, this is very true, and I have a great example of this. So we don't sell much on my company, doesn't sell much on eBay, but we sell one item on eBay, and we have had a couple of people who just didn't understand that they were having a problem with their system when they were using a product bought from us. But I have no control over whether or not they leave negative comments, and they leave. Some people will leave negative comments without ever even trying to reach out for support.
Right.
And then they make claims that
makes them a bad customer, but you can't control them.
Right, exactly. You don't control that. But generally speaking, we offer really great support. We offer a really great product. You can't get that product anywhere else, and it's so in some extent, I mean, you do have some control, I think, but you don't
have control over your actions.
Yeah, your
actions.
Over it's not your reputation that you really have control over.
You've offered support. You have the support there for somebody that reaches out to you. The same thing's true in other businesses as well, right? So, like, a good example is at a restaurant. I can't tell you how many times I've been out at restaurants with people who've been disappointed with something, and they won't say anything about it. Instead of actually saying something to a manager or to the waitress or waiter or whoever it is that is waiting on them and get the problem remedied right there, they just stew about it. And then later they tell people about what a bad experience they had at this restaurant when they never gave the restaurant the opportunity to make things right.
Right.
When they never gave the restaurant the opportunity to even know something was wrong. So while it's not your obligation as a customer to do those things, if you truly do want people to have a better experience, then I would say it's incumbent upon you to do something. It's incumbent upon you to say something. I mean, you could just be like, well, I'm never going to go there again, and I don't have to eat there. And sure, you can have that attitude, but I like to try to correct things when they're wrong. Like, let people know something was done that could have been done better, and pass on that feedback, because that person you're dealing with is just they're another human being, whether it's a waiter or the person on the other end of the support department at Think Penguin. They're just another human being in a circumstance that you just don't happen to be in that exact circumstance. Try to put yourself in their shoes. Would you want to have feedback about something that was done wrong so you could get it right the next time? Yeah, I think most people would. But it does take a little extra time, right? Like, if you're in a rush or in a hurry, I understand it does take a little extra time to communicate with somebody when something has gone wrong. I mean, we've gone astray from blackmail at this point, but go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'd say that, like, in regards to people, I'd say that, at least I don't know until before, right? In a normal society, people would value the truth over falsehoods, right? So a lot of times, if there's, like, in my experience, if a place has a bad reputation, it's because either something that they do, right? If, let's say, there's a good restaurant that does it, trying to come up with an example here. So, like, if there's let's say there's a good restaurant and the Yelp reviews get, like, totally trolled and bombed by people, like by trolls, like a competitor, right?
Mm-hmm, sure.
So that makes it appear.
That's happened.
It's I'm trying to Oh, I'm sorry. I lost.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the point you were trying to make.
No, I lost my train.
You were talking about a troll bombing a fast food, or not fast food, but a restaurant's Yelp reviews.
Yeah, I'm just trying to formulate the thesis better. Pardon me. So I'd say, but people then who would go there and see, these people would go and see, they would trying to say, geez, I'm trying to.
Well, I mean, bad reviews presumably would prevent people from going there in the first place, right? That's the purpose of leaving a bad review. As a competitor, that's the purpose of...
I shouldn't have gone into the restaurant thing, the minutiae. So I'm saying, in regards, I'd say my point is that people are in charge, for the most part, people are in charge of their reputations. I mean, I do believe that people could own a reputation in the sense that if you're talking about lies, right? Lies could affect a reputation. But if anyone looks into the truth and realizes that it's lies, then... Jeez.
You're wrong, dude.
No,
people
I'm
do
right.
not control their own reputation.
No, absolutely. No. I'm saying that in regards, most people would search for the truth. So people control. People say I'm doing bad
I'm not
things,
even
but
sure if that's true either.
Truth is
people are lazy.
People are
truth is
lazy.
preferable to lies. So if people say I'm doing something a bad thing, and I'm not,
truth may
that
be
doesn't that's not reputation. That's just lies. Compared to if I actually do bad things, then yeah, that actually would lower my reputation.
But
Because
it
would be
doesn't
true.
matter.
Oh, he's defining reputation differently than us.
Yeah. Well, he isn't from around here, so maybe that's a factor.
Ian's American xenophobia coming in. I think that's my fellow Canadian Stefan Molyneux would say. Ian, that is he's just British, but that's not an argument.
Is he really?
Yeah.
855-450 free.
Ian.
That's
Not an
855-450-3733. Well, you aren't talking about reputation, I guess. We'll continue here in moments. This is Free Talk Live. It's Free Talk Live. You can dial toll-free, bring up anything that you want. Our number is 855-450 free, like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. Hey, are you guys going to Fork Fest?
Heck yeah.
I haven't really decided. It depends on a lot of things.
Would you like to go to Fork Fest?
Well, as I said, it depends on a lot of things. I mean, maybe.
Well, I'm definitely going, and it sounds like Stephen and Derek are going from AnyPay.global because Stephen called in earlier this week to announce there's going to be a party tent every single night this year during Fork Fest. Yeah, so
what's a party tent?
Basically, loud music and live DJ and probably some lighting and good speakers, and so it's gonna be fun. We had a cool tent like that on the first year at Fork Fest, but there wasn't one the second year, and the first year it wasn't every night, and it wasn't really as good as it could have been because there was hardly anybody at the first Fork Fest. Right. So I think this year is going to be better. And with Steven and Derek in charge of it, it's going to be good because you want to put the gay guys in charge of the party.
Oh, yeah.
So that's going to be cool. And then Jay Noons announced that there's going to be what he calls Man Camp, where there will be several different opportunities for people young and old to learn how to do manly things. And we don't know exactly what the seminars will be at this point, but those are being produced as we speak. And so the cool thing about Fork Fest is that it is decentralized, meaning that you, as the individual, get to decide what to do. There's nobody who's in charge. There's nobody who is an organizer except of their own selves. So if there's something you want to organize, if you want to organize a poker game or a musical event or, whatever discussion group or I don't know, whatever you want to do, you can put it together and you can announce it. There are some unofficial ForkFest forums over at forkfest.party. There's also the unofficial ForkFest chat room on Telegram, which has been a little busy in the last few days. You've been in there, and we had to put a bot in there that automatically kicks out the other spam bots that are trying to come in there and spam in all kinds of nasty stuff. So that seems to be working pretty well. So
except when it kicks out the people who are legit.
Well, that's something we're working on. If you're joining the room on your own volition, you won't have an issue.
True.
The only issue has been when somebody else adds another person to the room and they don't know that they've been added, because then the bot wants you to do something within 6 hours, and if you don't do it, it'll boot you out.
Yeah.
It figures you're a bot. Anyway, go to forkfest.party. What are the days? Well, it's coming up June 13th through the 18th, so we're talking about 3.5 months. Basically, it's going to be coming up fast. So start planning now to be in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire at Rogers Campground, again, June 13th through the 18th. And if you want to stay on, of course, the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which is a centrally organized festival, comes up after Fork Fest. In fact, it starts the day that Fork Fest ends. I think that's probably another 4 or 5 days. So, you're looking like a 10-day thing if you want to come up for the whole thing.
It's like, I feel like it's 2 weeks.
Basically.
Close. And
not quite.
I've done almost that whole
The whole stretch.
The whole thing. It's rough. 2 weeks of camping.
Well,
but
there's not real camping.
But
I mean,
that's true. True. I got like a air mattress that I bring. But
there's bathrooms, number one, so it's not real camping. Number two, there's like a convenience store right there.
And there's also a motel on site and hotel right down the road too.
If Sarasota Ian says something's not real camping, you know it's not real camping.
Hey, dude, I've walked out into the Mayaca Valley Park like, I don't know, 12 miles or something like that, and camped out in the middle of
I have to say,
alligators are around, okay?
I have to say, I know what real camping is. Yeah. I've done it, but not since I was about 11, all right? And that's like, go into the mountains, camp on the ground, have no tent, and that's real camping.
Oh, wow, without even a tent?
Without a tent, and then you can say you've been real camping.
I don't know if that's even...
you get a sleeping bag, but no tent.
Yeah. I don't think it matters whether there's a tent or not, but
I think for my gauge, it's if there's, if there's like a pre-made campsite, if it's on a national park, right? If there's bathrooms near.
Bathrooms. No bathrooms. You got to dig yourself a hole and drink and wash from the from the stream that's right going.
You could bring your own supplies. I'm just saying that if there's any civilization within walking distance.
And you got to use little tablets in order to purify the water and the whole deal.
Forkfest.party. So it's not real camping, but it is fun. It's a lot of fun to hang out with other liberty-minded folks in a beautiful location, Rogers Campground right there in the White Mountains. It's awesome. Forkfest.party. It's the third year of it, so it's still going to be relatively small, but with you there, it'll be just one person bigger, and hopefully we'll have dozens, if not a couple hundred folks show up.
It got pretty big last year, though.
It did, though. Jay Noon did have a wedding, and that might have been a factor. I don't know. Maybe
but I mean, those people were even pretty far away for the most of the event, I think, so I don't know. It
was bigger either way. Year 2 was bigger than year 1, and so hopefully year 3.
Yeah, I mean, I stayed, I think, for the whole thing last year at Forkfest, so, it was at least one more person that was added for, 3 extra days, so.
Forkfest.party. Go check that out. We go to the phones here to the fun. It's Matthew in Louisiana listening on YouTube. Go ahead, Matthew.
Well, good evening, gentlemen.
Hey, what's on your mind?
I'm going to, with great regret, have to admit that Sarah is right about one thing.
Really?
Pedestrian deaths are up in the United States. I listened to a USA News radio report this morning, and it says that apparently it's hit some kind of a new high, 6,000 something or the other.
What that's?
And what is happening?
Pedestrian deaths.
Okay.
Apparently, what is happening is that SUVs are spawning themselves in the middle of the road and just running down pedestrians with their drivers, or somehow smartphones are connected to all of this. But
I can see that. I mean, if somebody is on a smartphone while they're driving, they are obviously not paying full attention to the road.
Or the people walking across the street.
That's what I'm saying. Or them too,
the pedestrians.
If both the person on the
combine the two, and there's a really bad combination.
And a driver on a smartphone.
I had some kid on a bike just pull out on the side of the road, and I almost... Well, I don't want to say I almost hit him, but just people are just absolutely
down in Acapulco.
What are they thinking?
Down in Acapulco, there were actually holes in the road that you could literally fall down into if you weren't paying attention. So
that's happened in first world countries where there's a manhole and someone's just typing and they just fall right.
We got some pretty big holes on West Street here in Keene even.
No, I mean an actual hole you could fall all the way
the whole
into.
body, all the way down. Yeah. Really? Wow.
Falling off cliffs playing Pokemon
There's
Go.
no video existing anywhere of somebody texting and falling into water fountains, is there? Of course not.
I bet there are.
There probably are.
I bet there are.
The other thing is that Vincent was talking about the witch hunt, and this is the one thing that drives me crazy. Trump needs to stop misgendering himself. It's not a witch hunt.
Who?
It's a warlock hunt. Damn it, Trump, get it right. Ciao.
Who's what? I missed
but
that
you're
one.
assuming Trump's gender, so you're wrong here, sir.
Hey, thanks for the call tonight. By the way, let's come back around to reputation here, because as you pointed out, I think astutely, Chris, Vincent and you and I were not using the same definition of reputation.
Yeah.
So let's pull up an actual definition of it from dictionary.com. It is a noun, the estimation in which a person or thing is held, especially by the community or the public generally, meaning that you don't get to decide. It is what other people think about you. That's what your reputation is.
I think his interpretation of the word is different, and I think there's not really a good word to distinguish between what we mean by the word and what he is trying to say. There just isn't a word for that in the English language.
I'm not sure what is it that you're trying to say.
So it's It's like not self-image, but it's the image someone puts out.
That which you're projecting to the world. Sure, you have total control over your image and how you want to be seen, but you do not get to control how you're actually seen or what people think about your projection of that image.
I mean, like for the way I grew, the way I learned it, and it's we all grew up in different parts of the country and everything. So I mean, there's probably a discrepancy from like what your from what the dictionary that you pulled up's the definition of reputation is how I'd like understood what I understood as like your like reception, right? How you're received by others. So I mean, I understand.
That's one way to look at it.
So yeah, so I mean, based off that definition,
but how you're received by others doesn't necessarily have to do with how you're projecting yourself out, right? Because what you can dress how you want, and you can say what you want, and you can have your hair styled however you want, and people will think different things about that.
But even your own projection isn't always under your control. I mean, people will cut you up. For example, if you go on a video, like a talk show or something, or do an interview.
Called dishonesty, though. I mean, that's them being dishonest.
But the point is that
that can damage your reputation.
Yeah. Like even your own projection is you only have so much control over it.
Right. I mean, look at for instance, with the hate group. For instance, you found this show through the hate group's flyer that they put out about me in downtown Keene, and thankfully they did that. Otherwise, you might not have ever found us, and you've been a great co-host and all that. So you always look on the bright side, but I don't get to control what flyers people make about me. Right. If they want to go out there and tell lies about me to try to tarnish my reputation. Now, look, I didn't get to this point in life because I've been dishonest or been rude or awful to people. You don't generally get to a successful point in life by treating people poorly. So I mean, I would like to think that my success speaks for itself. But for many people,
you say your success doing it. That's what I was saying. It's like you have tons of smear. Your reputation in Keene isn't particular. Oh no, never mind.
It depends on who you ask.
Yeah,
it depends. Everybody's an individual, and they all have different thoughts about you. There's more coming up here in moments. Hour number 3 is next. It's Free Talk Live. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. You can help by joining the AMP program for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com and getting perks. That's amp.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. You can dial toll-free here. Bring up anything that you want. Our number is 855-450-FREE, like freedom. 855-450-3733. Launching into the third hour with you tonight. It's Ian.
It's Vincent.
And Chris.
Coming up, Vincent, you want to talk about Alex Jones.
Dubious claims about Bitcoin.
Right, claiming that George Soros apparently offered him money to pump Bitcoin. We can get into that. But in other tech-related news, Chris, you've got this story about Huawei, which is a Chinese manufacturer, very, very, successful company.
Especially in China and elsewhere around the world.
Yeah. Now, it may not be a household name here in the United States. I can't think of any Huawei devices I've ever owned.
They have entered the U.S. market, though, and I will say I do believe I have purchased Huawei smartphones.
Don't they have, like, the cheapy smartphones?
Well, there's a difference between now we talk about language, inexpensive versus cheap.
Yeah, I mean, what do you consider inexpensive? Like $200, $400?
I would say sub 100 would be cheap.
I don't know if they're that cheap. I think.
I mean, for more affordable,
actually, it might have been. You might be right. I think it was a cheap $100 phone. Actually, now I think about it, it was one of the. I think it was a Firefox phone. Actually,
I'm not saying they make bad products. I don't know. I've never used them.
When people say cheap, cheap versus inexpensive. Like for some people, when they say cheap, it means it's inexpensive, but also at a cost, right? Because it's faulty in one area or another. My understanding is like Huawei, they're trying to get into because Samsung and Apple, right? They both release phones that are well over $1,000.
I can't even imagine why anyone would spend $1,000.
So my
on a
understanding is Huawei is trying to get into, is trying to sell affordable things, right? Sort of like what Japan did with cars back in the late 20th century.
Make money on volume.
I don't necessarily know that they're particularly catering to that market. They're a huge company, so they probably have products at a variety of different price points. I want to say that they are big in the GSM, cellular modem for like computers, like USB modems. But I might be mistaking companies. So
what's going on with this company? Because I've heard they have arrested like a CEO or some executive, CFO.
Let's see here. So the Canadian government, as expected on Friday, approved extradition proceedings against the chief financial officer of Huawei Technologies Company Limited, promoting a furious reaction from China. So yeah, it was the daughter of a very significant, I want to say politician. In China, and I don't know. I think let's see here. Meng. Well, let me continue.
It says here on the Wikipedia story, at least, that Meng Wanzhou was the CFO and vice chairperson of Huawei.
Right. And Meng Wanzhou is the daughter of Huawei's founder. And was detained in Vancouver last December, and is under house arrest in Canada. So this is the U.S. messing with some really significant players in China on a political, this is politics basically. And
it says here they're accusing her of violating U.S. sanctions against Iran.
Right, and that's exactly what's going on. So December is under house arrest. In late January, the U.S. Department charged Meng with Hawaii with conspiring to violate U.S. sanctions on Iran. So what's interesting about this is that
how the hell can they go after somebody from China for violating sanctions on Iran?
Right.
Because I imagine they're trying to do business with Iran. That's what they did to the Chinese gun exporters, right? They claimed that the Norinco was doing business with Iran, and that's what the U.S. government likes to do to shut down foreign competition.
So, but wait, is the idea if you have any kind of business in the United States, even if you're not based in the United States, that you're not allowed to deal with Iran as well?
No, it doesn't have to be based.
That's correct.
It's like
if you do any kind of business in the United States, which Huawei
does,
it does now. They've entered the U.S. market. They are not allowed under U.S. law to do business with Iran.
Wow, that's insane.
That's what they're arguing, and they don't. The U.S. doesn't recognize or Canada and the United States are not recognizing like jurisdictional, boundaries basically. And China is saying no, this is not acceptable. Why? Really, why should
it's outrageous?
It's outrageous for the U.S. to be trying to enforce its laws on a company overseas.
But that's exactly what's happening, and they also apparently had Canada do their bidding and arrest this person.
Yeah, and this is absolutely outrageous because I'm not even sure that Canada has a law like this against Iran because I believe the UN sanctions failed against Iran. So I don't know that Canada is actually, the U.S. proceeded to continue with the sanctions even though it failed at like the UN or something. But Canada presumably doesn't have those sanctions. Now,
this isn't the first time something like this has happened. A decade or so, close to a decade ago, Canada also, at the behest of the United States, arrested Mark Emery, the Prince of Pot, the guy who was the publisher of Cannabis Culture magazine, who ran Cannabis Culture Head Shop or Smoke Shop or whatever it was in Vancouver, and has been like the one of the largest lightning rods for controversy over cannabis legalization in North America. They had the Canadian police arrest him, and they extradited him from Canada, even though he didn't do anything that was illegal in Canada. They extradited him from Canada into the United States to where he then got found guilty and served 5 years in prison.
The U.S. is got a lot of power around the world, and they use it. And I think this kind of stuff happens all the time. They extradite from Colombia and Mexico. And in Mexico, it wasn't, and I think even Colombia too was the case, that the government there wasn't even allowed to send their citizens overseas, but yet they did anyway. I don't know if they broke the law or they changed the law in order to do it, but that was in relation to drugs. But now if you look at like copyright, Mega Upload, Kim.com, for those who are familiar with that
They're still trying
case.
to extradite him.
They're still trying to extradite him for something that he's never been to the United States.
How long has that been now?
It's
most of a decade.
It's still ongoing, and this is just the extradition proceeding in New Zealand,
right?
But yeah, I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And there was the hacker. Somebody hacked in from. Now there are some differences in some of these cases because in some cases there is a law against it in the country that they're extraditing from. So they broke the law. They did break the law in their home country from where they're being extradited from. But it should be that country that they're prosecuted in, not a foreign jurisdiction for which they have also broken the foreign jurisdiction's law, because they were never in, presumably, in most cases, those people have not ever even gone into those foreign jurisdictions. It's kind of like, you got to think of it like this. If I break Iranian law, okay, but I'm not in Iran, there's
no jurisdiction,
right? Why should Iran be able to extradite me, right? The U.S. presumably wouldn't allow them to extradite me.
Well, we had a situation,
but that's what the U.S. is doing.
And what happened after, you may recall this, Vincent, after Canada did its legalization of cannabis, South Korea put out a notice to all of its South Korean citizenry in Canada saying, if you are found to have been smoking marijuana while in Canada, you will go to prison when you come back to South Korea.
Yeah, what's interesting too is the U.S. has I think there's a constitutional thing here where if you go overseas and you commit a crime overseas, the U.S. can't prosecute you in the United States. Generally, speaking.
They can. It depends on the crime.
Yes, there's like two or three different crimes that they can prosecute you for if you've committed them overseas.
Sex tourism, I think.
That's right.
Sex tourism is definitely one of them. But generally speaking, like there's this concept. Now, I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know. Clearly, I mean, it's an interesting thing because it seems like they kind of ignore the law and they get away with.
Who ignores what law?
The U.S. gets away with kind of ignoring that in a lot of cases, or it might just be because the law was broken in the foreign country, and when that happens, and if it was also broken in the U.S., even though the person's overseas when they break the law, in that case, it's some sort of exception. But it's because there's a cross-border issue, and I think that's what enables them to like extradite Kim.com or a hacker or somebody who's
they haven't extradited Kim.com yet.
They haven't,
still
but they're
fighting
trying.
in the New Zealand court system.
But it's obviously it's New Zealand's court in this case that matters.
In that case,
and it always is the extraditing country that it matters. But the point that I'm trying to make is that they basically get bullied. These countries get bullied, and
Well, where is there more to this? I mean, we haven't really talked about whatever it is going on with Huawei.
Yeah, we can continue.
So I want to know more about what's happening with this lady who, again, I don't think she's committed any kind of criminal act.
I don't think so either.
And who knows what she's going to be facing for punishment. We're coming up here in moments. It's Free Talk Live. It's Free Talk Live. Dial in toll free here. 855-450-FREE like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. I mean, are we even allowed to speak to somebody in Iran?
I don't know.
If somebody calls in to Free Talk Live on Discord, from our Discord server at discord.lrn.fm, where people from around the world have called on our on-air call-in line rooms there. If somebody from Iran calls in, does that mean that we're getting a financial benefit because maybe they make the show better?
That argument could be made. I mean, it's absolutely insane, but that's exactly the kind of arguments that the U.S. routinely makes against people and businesses and such.
Yeah. So we're talking about Iran, specifically Huawei, the electronics manufacturer from China that has, I wouldn't call them a household name, but certainly they're making inroads into the U.S. market. And apparently that they didn't realize they couldn't do business in Iran, apparently at the same time. And now the U.S. government has had the CFO arrested when she was in, Vancouver over in Canada somewhere?
Yeah, in Vancouver she was arrested maybe a couple months ago.
It's outrageous.
She's basically been held she's been kidnapped by Canada, basically,
right?
And,
on the say-so,
and they wouldn't they won't let her leave. And there's a proceeding going on to extradite her to the United States to face, and I'm going to put this in quotes, justice, which is absolutely insane. But
where's the victim?
I don't know. I don't see any victims here.
Right. All you've got are politicians in Washington, D.C. who've said that this other group of people on this other part of the planet, specifically the politicians, they're bad. So therefore, everyone within that plot of land has to be
a
punished.
Victim here, but it's not. It's Huawei and
the Iranian people. By the way, they're the victims.
It's the Iranian people. It's Meng here,
and every American business who wants to do business with Iranians.
Right. There are victims here, but it's not. Yeah, it's the government that's doing the victimizing. Yeah. Today, the Department of Justice Canada officials issued an authority to proceed, formally commencing an extradition process in the case of Miss Meng Wanzhou, the government said in a statement. I apologize. I don't know how to pronounce any of these names. I think I got...
I think Wanzhou is pretty close. That's probably what it is.
Yeah. China, whose relations with Canada have deteriorated badly over the affair, denounced the decision and repeated previous demands for Meng's release. Yeah, I mean, I would say that if... I understand people's, the one thing I get upset about is people making the argument, well, China doesn't understand that Canada has a rule of law and like they have to go through procedures and politicians can't just release her. Well, I would agree with that in some respects, but the problem with this is this is clearly a political situation, and it's not the rule of law that's going on here. Because if the rule of law was going on here, they would be recognizing that there's jurisdictional boundaries and that there is no leg to stand on as far as extradition to the U.S. So they should have released her, basically almost immediately.
Well, I mean, there is a leg to stand on. They've done this before, and they're basically the U.S.'s bitch.
There's no legitimate leg to stand on, I guess is what I'm trying to say. The argument I'm trying to make.
I mean, am I right, Vincent? You're from Canada. Is Canada's the U.S.'s bitch?
Well, I think there's more elegant words to be used. I mean, the U.S. certainly has a lot of sway over Canada. It's one of its biggest trading partners, and there's been a very long time working relationship with it. So, yeah, I'd say the U.S. has more clout over Canada than Canada would have over the United States.
It almost makes you wonder if there's something else going on here. Is this something that the U.S. government is doing at, let's say, the behest of a more well-connected competitor, say Apple or Samsung?
We already know that's going on because this is not the only person who's been arrested on basically dubious grounds.
You mean from Huawei or in general?
No, in general. Like, for example, Russia, not so much. Certain companies have been targeted.
Russian companies?
Yeah, certain Russian companies have been targeted by the government, basically by the politicians. And
just because they're Russian, basically.
Yeah, just because they're Russian, and it's not to say that I don't agree. They make arguments like it's basically over security is what they're arguing, and I don't necessarily disagree that the government has legitimate security concerns here. The problem is that they have those issues regardless of whether or not it's a Russian company or a U.S. company or some other foreign company.
Sure.
So their argument basically kind of fails flat on its, it fails. So I mean, just to add, like, I'm looking at Huawei's Wikipedia page, and under its controversies, like, all the bad stuff that it does, there's like several pages worth. But then what they're actually accusing them of doing, right, via violating the sanctions, that's like just a paragraph or something. Look, so I mean, like, I think it's clear they're just going after them. Nobody's defending Huawei's actions as far as what else they might have done that has been, terrible, right? Like, they could be a really horrible company, and I'm not saying they aren't a horrible company. They might be a horrible company, but that doesn't necessarily mean that in this particular situation, the U.S. wrong wasn't done to. No, I understand. Right. I mean, I have no sympathy for them, but I'm able to. But I understand that what's happening to them is not fair. I don't think there's any question that the Chinese government has influence over these companies. I mean, pretty much any company in China, the Chinese government is going to have influence over. But on the same token, the U.S. government has influence over U.S. companies as well, right? Well, and the U.S. government has influence over foreign companies. Over some companies. I was going to say in China, the government has shills in the companies. In the U.S., the companies have shills in the government. I mean, yeah. I think in in both the U.S. and China, there's going to be a mix of political leadership having control over companies and, companies having political influence within it. I think it's just going to happen no matter what the government situation is.
One is a slightly more liberal socialist country, which is the U.S., and the other is a capitalist authoritarian place. Which is China. They're both run by the banks. It's just.
I want to bring up Iraq, actually, pre-Saddam. If you look at what the situation was in Iraq.
You're talking about like the early 1980s? Because didn't he get put in like 1980 or something?
80s and 90s. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
I forget.
No, in the 80s and 90s, basically during Saddam's rule, his family basically had, and people around him had a lot of influence in companies, and those companies did really, really well. And it was a dictatorship, basically.
He was a U.S. asset,
right? Well, yeah, that's true too.
Oh yeah, he assassinated someone right before he went into power, and he was being trained by the CIA or something.
That's how he got into power.
That is how he got
assassinating. I don't remember who. I don't know if it was a legitimate, like some sort of legitimate.
Oh yeah, from the beginning,
government or pseudo-legitimate government.
He was in the U.S. government's pocket from the beginning, right? They're the ones who put him into power. They supported Iraq during the Iran-Iraq war.
Yeah. I know that definitely was the case. I don't know if he got into power with sponsorship from the U.S., but I certainly know
he did. Without any doubt.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah, that's why I said 1980, because I remember there was like a picture of him with Donald Rumsfeld shaking hands. Yeah, it's here.
It's like they have a picture of McCain with ISIS leaders.
Certainly, the U.S. Supported him during the Iran-Iraq war because the U.S. was they lost their puppet in Iran, so they're going to support basically the Iran's enemy.
We got more coming up here. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. You can take control of the airwaves and bring up whatever's on your mind, whether it's the Huawei controversy, sanctions against Iran. Again, I think all sanctions need to be wiped out immediately so we can actually just trade with whoever we want. It's Free Talk Live. Is spreading the message of liberty, cryptocurrency, and peace around the globe worth $2 per month to you? As you may already know, in addition to our internet feed, LRN.FM broadcasts on free-to-air satellite across North and Central America, as well as Sub-Saharan Africa. And we've been available on satellite for free 24/7 since 2010. The LRN.FM free-to-air satellite signal is reaching some of the most oppressive regimes in the world, and there's no doubt our ideas are making an impact. You can learn more about the channel's impact by watching the 3-minute video at fund.lrn.fm. If you'd like to help free minds globally with our ideas of liberty, cryptocurrency, and peace, you can donate as little as $2 per month via fund.lrn.fm. You can help us continue and expand our satellite broadcast to multiple continents. Visit fund.lrn.fm today, and thank you for your help. Don't forget to share the link on social media. That's fund.lrn.fm. It's Free Talk Live. Dial in toll free here if you want to join us. We're talking about sanctions against Iran and how that's now apparently gotten Huawei into some hot water in the United States with their CFO being arrested in Vancouver by the Canadian government on the behest of the U.S. government. Recent news shows that apparently Canadian government has recently said that they can extradite her to the United States. So that's not good.
No, it's not.
Considering that really, I'm sorry, I don't think it needs to be a crime for somebody to do business with people in Iran. I don't think the people of a plot of land need to be punished for what their politicians do. If people could trade with Venezuela, if they could trade with Iran and Cuba, then the people in those places would be better off.
Well, it's not like, Huawei just goes to Tehran, doesn't talk to the government at all and sets up a total free market booth. I mean, I'm not defending what the U.S. government's doing. I'm just saying it's not, the Iranian government's going to get something from it, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, the Iranian government's going to be involved. It's not like
they can't get cell phones anyway.
Well, no, yeah, I'm just saying it's not like there's free trade everywhere else in the world except the U.S. I mean, the Iranian government's going to benefit from it. I'm not saying I agree with what they're doing. I'm just saying it's not like, we're just going to show up and directly trade with the people. I mean, the government's somehow going to get involved, especially.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's it's interesting. It's kind of an interesting situation because the U.S. This isn't like the only company that the U.S. has gone against basically or gone after. But what's interesting about this is that this is a foreign company and not a U.S. company. Right. So, like for example, they've gone after HP, who sold printers to I think it was it wasn't Kuwait. It was one of the Middle Eastern countries anyway, and they then a company there then sold them to Iran, and I think the way they get around some of this stuff is essentially they've got people like on little boats like carrying the stuff off, and there's this whole network basically of people who just basically they take these like anything that you could possibly want and they put them on little boats and they go and they into the, I don't know exactly, I'm not sure exactly where it is or like what kind of water or ocean or whatever has to be traveled in order to make it happen, or if there even is anything. But there's basically these routes, and it's just bizarre because it's not like large companies like trucking, I guess, tons of merchandise. It's like a little bit of merchandise like carried over the border into Iran, and that's why Iran, when you go to Iran, you can actually find US made electronics or
there's not many US made electronics.
How do I say this? US companies designed
Product.
electronics which have been smuggled into Iran basically against
like
US
Apple.
sanction.
Like
exactly.
Apple.
So you can readily get Apple products
Right.
in Iran, or
Sure.
and all sorts of HP printers and like
where
all
there's
sorts
a
of other
will,
products.
there's a way.
Right, exactly.
If somebody wants to do something, they're going to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, the sanctions basically haven't really been very effective, even though the United States has gone after U.S. companies. And
the products, the marketplace is always going to find a way around whatever burdens the governments put in their way, whatever blocks. But it does cost, right? Like it's way less efficient to get the products into Iran under sanctions than it would be otherwise, because you could just send in shipping containers full of them without any issue.
I mean, I get the impression that it's actually not as expensive as you might think. And I don't know if that has to do with the labor, like cheap labor being involved, but I guess it works. It's effective. So it's. Yeah,
Good point.
I mean, we got the U.S. can't even keep drugs out of the United States.
Nope, that's true.
From crossing the border. It's not even like they have to be produced here, because we have a secure border. But
so, is there more that we need to know about this case, or just kind of like generally talking about the?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a little bit more that I'd be interested in just quoting here. Let's see here.
And still to come, we got the Alex Jones and George Soros Bitcoin conspiracy.
Yeah, so this next piece is kind of interesting. Legal experts had predicted the Liberal government of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau would give the go-ahead for extradition proceedings, given the close judicial relationship between Canada and the United States. I mean, they're basically saying here that politics is going to make it happen, not some sort of legal situation. Because obviously relationship, they're not talking about the law. They're talking
even though Trudeau's a liberal and Trump is a purported Republican.
Right, because it's going to benefit Canada, and that's clearly politics, not because they're following.
I'm not sure how it benefits Canada. Besides, the U.S. wouldn't punish them, right? Like it's just benefiting them in the absence of a beating,
right?
Well, or it's like they have extradition treaties. So if a Canadian criminal escapes to the U.S.,
then the U.S. will
it's
extradite.
reciprocal.
Now,
okay.
It is interesting. Though this next section is also interesting. So it could be years though before Meng is ever sent to the United States, since Canada's slow-moving justice system allows many decisions to be appealed. So it's going to be interesting if this is similar to how things are in New Zealand with Kim.com.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows how long this could go on for.
I don't know.
But at the same time, I kind of have to wonder, like, I mean, China. This is a person who is very, very high on the list. Politically in China.
Right.
So the idea that this is not going to backfire on Canada and the United States is just like, we already know it's backfired. China has arrested U.S.
Really?
they've arrested at least 2 or 3, from what I recall.
Executives, or who are they arresting?
Like executives in China.
Wow.
Obviously it's arbitrary, but then again, the U.S.'s actions and Canada's actions
totally
are kind of arbitrary too. So, I can't really blame them, but it's a danger. I think this is why it's so particularly dangerous, this situation, because the United States has said we're going to basically ignore the international jurisdiction. We're going to ignore jurisdiction.
What they're saying is our jurisdiction extends everywhere.
Right,
exactly.
Exactly.
It's not that they're ignoring jurisdiction; they're just saying we own you.
Right.
And if you exist on the planet, we're going to say you can't trade with Iran.
Yeah, and I don't think China should put up with this. It's absolutely outrageous, and I don't think the people in the U.S. should put up with this.
But what are you going to do about it? Because
you're right, and there's not much I can probably do about it at an individual level. But I'm certainly going to talk about this issue.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's not like the Democrats are going to get rid of the sanctions either.
No, it's not. It's not. It's unfortunate. But again, I wouldn't call myself a Democrat or a Republican either.
Right. But I'm just saying, as far as political change is concerned, there's no libertarians that are going to be getting into office.
No, and
so it's like,
okay, but this also kind of goes back to why I'm in New Hampshire, right?
Yeah.
It's why you're in New Hampshire. It's why we're all in New Hampshire, right? So, I don't really feel like this particular issue we're going to have any. I'm not delusioned, or I'm not delusional.
You will have no impact on.
Yeah, that I'll have any impact on this particular issue, but I do think that there are issues we can have an impact with moving forward, even if they're at a
local level,
or a lesser level.
Let's go to the phones here. I got David in New Mexico listening via TuneIn. Go ahead, David.
Answering the question that you posed the other day, where we left the conversation that we were discussing, I had brought up that I was threatened with jail again for calling my government office, in this case a Monica Rodriguez, the deputy administrator of the Children's Court in Albuquerque. I have, pursuant to 32A 516E, I have a right to get some information, and she doesn't want to give me the time of day to answer my questions because she thinks I'm stupid and full of it and a waste of her time, and so on and so forth. And that may or may not be true. However, 32A 516E still gives me a statute to stand on that I'm entitled to certain information. And she hangs up on me, and I call back, and then she threatens to call the sheriff on me. So you pose the question, what right does a government worker have to make those kind of decisions? Certainly they have some right. You can't just call them up and ask them what their favorite TV show is constantly. But when you're a party to a court case, and there's a statute that mandates that Monica Rodriguez do something, and in your legal opinion, she's not doing it. In fact, she's obstructing you. I think I allege illegally that I have some right to call back. So anyway, she said if I call her back again, that to continue trying to get my questions answered, she will call the cops.
Well, if she does, then you'll have the chance to argue it in front of a judge.
Yeah, that's
Thanks
true.
for the call, David. I wish you the best on that. There's more coming up here. 855-450, free like freedom. Join us on Free Talk Live. It's Free Talk Live. Dial in, toll free in these remaining moments. There's enough time for you if you jump in now. Our number is 855-450, free like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. We've also got the Discord on-air call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm. And we now have video clips over at clips.freetalklive.com that are being manufactured on a daily basis. There's at least a couple a day, it seems like, coming out. It's a great, easy way for you to share Free Talk Live on your favorite social media websites or wherever it is that you want to share it. And so all you have to do is go to clips.freetalklive.com, hit the subscribe button on that YouTube channel, or if you prefer, you can also follow on Twitter at twitter.freetalklive.com, on Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter, over at toot.freetalklive.com, and via Telegram at telegram.freetalklive.com. Those are three very useful social media links for you, and again, all those video clips get posted there as well. So check it out at clips.freetalklive.com. Let's change gears from the international Iran Huawei controversy into George Soros apparently offering $5 million, according to Alex Jones for Jones to pump Bitcoin. That's the claim, at least. Vincent, you've got the story.
Yeah. This is from ccn.com, which looks like some cryptocurrency.
Cryptocurrency.
I couldn't find what the CCN stood for. I looked all over.
I think it's
website.
cryptocurrency news.
Oh, okay.
I think
so. It has plenty of that. It has plenty of that. So this was said on the Joe Rogan podcast. Jones went back on to Joe Rogan for episode
after they had a fight.
Yeah. So he was originally on there on episode 911.
Do you think it was legit or was it staged? The fight between Rogan and Alex Jones.
I think they made up so fast, especially since Jones accused Rogan of all sorts of stuff. They made up so quickly that
yeah, Jones was not nice on the video. I saw a clip of it, and he was not nice to.
Yeah,
to
and
Rogan.
I mean, I understand. Like, I'm no fan of Jones anymore. Trust me.
You used to be.
Yeah. Now I'm probably one of his biggest critics online. Although I have a lot of company there. But with what Joe Rogan, as he said, Joe Rogan was repeating mainstream media lies about Jones. He refused to. He was too scared to have him on because he said he was too toxic because of his views and stuff. So I thought that was sort of duplicitous behavior, but. Here it's I brought this not just because of the drama between Jones and Rogan, but it's because of the cryptocurrency talk on here. Just begin. Alex Jones made his triumphant return to the Joe Rogan Experience podcast recently, where he discussed Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and his arch nemesis George Soros, among other things. Jones suggested that Soros had reached out to him via intermediaries in an attempt to cool the InfoWars founder's constant attacks on him. Part of the deal, according to Jones, meant agreeing to advertise, or in Jones's words, pump Bitcoin. And so Jones's words are, I got told 8 years ago, I got told by two different people, two very well-known rich people. They said, George Soros likes you. He wants to work with you, as does Alexander Soros. You just need to stop attacking him. Oh, and by the way, we want you to pump Bitcoin. And I find this somewhat suspect because he would, in the past...
You think he's lying?
Well, in the past, right, when Bitcoin was up, he would talk about how people tried to get him to sell out, but he would never mention Bitcoin involved in it. And so, which is, and he had Roger Ver on and never mentioned that either.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they get into that. So I find it suspect that only just now he's bringing up Bitcoin. That because like if I had someone like an really big rich evil mastermind offer me money and I'd refuse, I'd obviously go on the air like that day and
say something about
exactly. Yeah. So
well, what if he was considering it though?
Well, he claims he denied it. So, and Jones, and if why would he even be considering it if he's as honest as he claims? So Jones
maybe
has
he's not as honest as he claims, though.
That's the point.
Yeah. So, and Jones has a history of saying that he's been approached by big people or like very shady people.
I don't know who we're talking about, to be honest. So, like,
you've never heard of George Soros?
I'm not really familiar.
George Soros
maybe you guys can connect, make an association.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Maybe there's others out there too.
George Soros is a billionaire, and he made his money through financial machinations. Like he's known as the person who broke the back of the Bank of England. He, so he's a big financial guy.
I've heard the name, but
he's a lefty.
I don't really know
and
him.
He funds all most Emily's List, and he has a bunch of nonprofits and
so kind of like have you heard of the Koch brothers?
Yeah.
So he's like the lefty version of the Koch brothers.
Okay.
So
Except
the Koch
gives
brothers
a lot more money. He gives a lot more money.
Is that right?
And has a lot more. Like he's been caught funding like Black Lives Matter rallies, Antifa. All sorts of stuff through his open foundation. And he gets government money to do this, too. He gets State Department grants. There's warrants out for his arrest.
I'd like to let George Soros know that we'd be happy to pump Bitcoin for him if he just wants to give us a call.
And so
I could use $5 million. We pump Bitcoin anyway, so...
Yeah, right?
So here...
That's why you're not getting the money.
Right.
Jones continues, he said, I got offered at the time... Hold on. I got offered at the time about $5 million worth of Bitcoin. I think it was about $38 million by the time it got here, the peak, and I refused it. Despite these dirty dealings that Jones claims to have been part of, he hasn't been put completely off by the idea of cryptocurrency in general. Listen, I believe in cryptocurrencies. I believe in its future. It's the future. We have a private Federal Reserve. It's all fiat. I'm not judging anybody. I'm just saying, be careful. Not his first crypto rodeo. This isn't the first time Jones has given his opinion on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general. For crypto enthusiasts, Jones's interview with Bitcoin Jesus Roger Ver should be considered essential viewing. Crypto is the future, but beware packaged grassroots movements. His frequent discussions with Peter Schiff have also resulted in interesting conversations.
Who is not in favor of Bitcoin, by the way.
He's a metals guy, so obviously he's going to be
That doesn't mean anything, though. I mean...
but it's his competitor in the, anti-fiat sort of market, right?
I mean, I guess you could look at it that way, but some people with more open minds have like Robertson Roberts, gold dealer down in Florida, which is a very libertarian gentleman who runs that, Tim Roberts, I don't want to say his last name. Anyway, Tim's his name.
Whoops.
Nice guy. Anyway, actually his last name isn't Roberts. My point was, with Roberts and Roberts, they accept cryptocurrency. So you can buy gold and silver with cryptocurrency.
Oh, which is great. I'm just saying that, and I understand Schiff's thinking, where it's like it used to be, if you wanted to get something else out of value, you would either get like real estate or metals. Now there's crypto's an easy alternative.
But what Schiff is saying is that it doesn't have backing, right? Isn't that his main objection?
Yeah,
to
he says
crypto?
it could be worth zero any day now.
Yeah.
So could the dollar.
Well, I mean, the odds that the dollar is going to jump to zero in one day are pretty
so could
slim.
be metals if someone invents something like from Star Trek where you can just move around particles to create things.
Transmogrification or whatever of take coal and turn it into gold, then all of a sudden the price of gold is going to go down.
The argument against that is that you shouldn't be investing in crypto and you shouldn't be investing in the U.S. dollar either. Investments should be actually you should have an idea they're going to go up in value and
you never know if an investment's going to go up in value. That's why it's an investment.
Right, but there's less risky investments and there's more risky investments.
Sure.
You generally don't want to put all your eggs in one basket.
Nope.
But you want to put your eggs in when you're younger in more risky investments, and as you get older in less risky investments, and diversify, of course.
So, but this next part, what he's saying is why I wanted to bring it up. I find it very suspect Jones is, as you said, fudding with Bitcoin, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Jones claimed he was being offered $1 million a month to promote cryptocurrencies at the height of what he regards as a Ponzi scheme. He says he took this as a sign that the bottom was about to collapse. And Jones says,
"Wait a minute. So Jones is saying on one hand that crypto is a Ponzi scheme, but on the other hand saying it's the future.
Bitcoin is the Ponzi scheme.
Ridiculous."
Well, I mean, I don't. It's,
Bitcoin. It shows that he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Well, let's let him. Let's hear for what he has to say. Right? It has. That means. And I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying. Yeah. That means he says that means we're about to dump it. We're pulling their money out of a Ponzi scheme, and they want to bring it all the new suckers in with big advertising push to prop it up. So it collapses months later, and they don't get to blame for pulling their money out, which is the crime. When they know it's going down, it's called a pump and dump. And then he continues, I don't say cryptocurrency itself is bad, but I knew it had been pushed by the establishment. It was only being put out as a global currency, but also as an anti-establishment to get folks to adopt it. Only way you could get grassroots is to act like it's anti-establishment. And, when he talks about establishment, I agree with him to the point where it's like you have, CNBC talking about Bitcoin and crypto. You have all these futures and such. So I think Bitcoin's been, I'm pretty sure Bitcoin's controlled by the banks at this point, just because of all the machinations.
Honestly, just because it's supported by both sides does not necessarily mean that it doesn't have the aspects that are valuable to somebody who is, anti-government or libertarian. You can have both sides supporting something. I know socialists who support crypto. Sure. I also know, libertarians who support crypto. So, I mean, the idea that it's, You
don't have to be in favor of the Federal Reserve to be a socialist, right? Socialists can be completely against that system too,
right?
And see that the cryptocurrency is an escape from that, and it absolutely is. Now, I may have my critiques of Bitcoin as far as its development is concerned. I think that
I think we all have our.
I think it's stalled
basically
as far as it hasn't fixed its issues.
Right.
But ultimately, the concept behind it is what spawned all of this. So, if Jones wants to say cryptocurrency is the future, then he has to acknowledge that Bitcoin was the grandfather of that. And it's not a Ponzi scheme. A Ponzi scheme is where, it's an investment scheme where everybody who, is in early benefits because other people end up coming in, but then the whole thing falls apart because you can't get enough people to come in.
Well, and a lot of cryptos and ICOs were like that.
Well, there may be some scams that have happened for sure, but Bitcoin itself is not a Ponzi scheme.
Well, I think what he says, it could turn into it because someone could have taken control of Bitcoin.
No, a Ponzi scheme is where you're promised a return on your investment.
Well, yeah, and if they say
on other people's deposits,
that's
not the same thing at all.
We could turn into
Bitcoin.
one.
No, it really couldn't. We'll see you tomorrow online. In the meantime, freetalklive.com.
All right, it's another edition of the Edgington Post Show. I am Mark Edge here at the North American Bitcoin Conference. Well, the place is packed and folks are having a good time. It's still early in the morning on the first day. I think it's probably about 10:30 a.m. And I've already found some interesting interviews for you. Today I've got with me Michael O., CEO of Coolbix? Coolbix. Excellent. There's a lot of hardware wallets in the space, Michael. Coolbix has a wallet that is highly unique. You gave me the demo, and the demo was awesome. I want you to talk to my listeners about it.
So I talked to listeners first about our product, and I'll explain to you how we came up with the idea and how our company looks like.
Yep.
So the product is a credit card-sized hardware device with a Bluetooth chip and a secure element chip with common criteria EL5+ certification. That means very secure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the fact that we make it exact credit card size has a unique advantage that it fits right into your actual wallet.
Yep, and when you say credit card size, it might be slightly thicker than a credit card, but not much. If you count the little embossed numbers that are on a credit card, it's thinner than a credit card.
It's thinner, yeah. You got it right.
Right. So it's thicker than the card, but thinner than the embossment on the card. And it's got a little screen on it, too.
Yeah, it's got a screen and a button.
Yeah.
So on the screen, you can actually see your crypto balance.
Yep.
And you can see the amount you are about to send. And you can see the destination address.
And this wallet is as secure as any hardware wallet out there, right?
I'd say it's got one extra layer of security than the current hardware wallets in the market.
Okay.
What we call 2+1 factor authentication.
Okay.
Which means to make a transaction, you need the card itself plus your own smartphone, not yours, not somebody else's, but your own, plus the facial recognition or fingerprint. It's biometric. So all three places in place, you can make one transaction.
Right. So you showed me, and I thought it was really fascinating. Basically, if I want to make a transaction with my hardware wallet, and generally I would not make a transaction with my hardware wallet, I'd keep it at home. But let's say I want to buy a car or a boat or a house with cryptocurrency. Then I, strap on my gun, and I put my hardware wallet in my back pocket, and I go to the car dealer, right? And I look at all the cars, I find the car that I want to get, and then, we go through all the options and everything, and then the salesman says, how do you want to pay for this? And I say, well, of cryptocurrency, of course, and because it's a good car dealer we're talking about, he says, absolutely. What crypto would you like to use? Well, I'm going to use Bitcoin. And then I go ahead and I begin the transaction. I pull out my, the card, and I also open up the app on my phone.
Yeah. So you pull out your Coolwallet S.
Yep.
And your mobile app, Coolbix app, and then you'll be able to make one transaction very quickly. That's the user behavior, that the market activity we are forming. We want to make people to be able to trade, to be able to pay on the go, not just a pile of coins sitting in a bulk in a vault in a home.
Right.
We want to enable them to be able to use it to make this market alive.
As far as, you're using Bluetooth from your phone to the card, is there some way for a nefarious actor to get in between somehow?
We've done quite a few penetration tests.
Yep.
And so far, I can tell you the result is okay.
Okay.
We are safe from the known attacks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I would think is that, first off, the nefarious actors won't be looking for these transactions because, like I said, you're probably going to buy a car, a boat, or a house. This isn't going up and buying cups of coffee. Likely. I mean, somebody could do that if that's what they want to do. But it's a really secure transaction for a cup of coffee.
Yes, it is. And actually, in the near future, with the boom of stable coins coming out last year, we are actually foreseeing in the near future, people will actually be paying a coffee with stable coins.
Okay.
That makes more sense than paying with Bitcoin.
Sure. I've seen people do Apple Pay and Google Pay and a variety of digital transactions out there, and they're fast and easy. If you could have a simple stable coin, you could put, $100 or whatever on your phone when you go out in the morning, the same way you do. You grab some money off the table, and then you're safer than you would be by carrying cash in your wallet. And there's advantages to that. I understand why some people want to have cash in their wallet, but at the same time, there's advantages to not having it. Some bum asks you for money. Well, I don't have any. Tell me about your crypto wallets. It's really an awesome product. Is it available today?
Well, it is available since last year.
Okay.
Our company Coolbix started in 2014.
Coolbix. Yep.
Coolbix.
Yep.
Coolbix.
Yep.
And we are headquartered in Taiwan. And we delivered our first prototype in 2015.
Okay.
And first generation mass production in 2016. Then second generation came out March 2018. Now we've sold over 150,000 units worldwide, and we are funded by a lot of big companies like Bitmain, SBI Holding, the biggest financial institution in Japan, and we've got over $13 million US funding already. So we're doing okay.
You're a big boy in this little pool. Awesome. So how do people go and find one?
Simply go to coolwallet.io.
Coolwallet.io.
Yeah. You'll be able to purchase any cool wallet with a crypto payment or credit card.
It's awesome. Michael, I really appreciate it. I want to talk real quick about Taiwan. I mean, you guys have become the center for freedom in the world. It's amazing. Things have really changed in the last 15 years to a decade over in Taiwan. You got a new prime minister, and she understands the value of commerce and making Taiwan the headquarters. It seems like Hong Kong is getting less free, and Taiwan's getting more free.
Well, I gotta say, Taiwan stands a very unique position in Chinese-speaking world.
Yes.
In terms of embracing democracy.
Yep.
Now we have our own sphere to talk whatever we want to talk about.
Right.
You can judge, you can criticize politicians, whereas other Chinese-speaking worlds, you may not have such
disappear.
rights. That's one way to put it.
Right. You'll end up wherever that guy from Tiananmen Square is. That man's a hero, whoever he is, whoever he was. Yeah, indeed. I'm so excited to get out to Taiwan and check out things over there. I've heard many good things and want to go see what's going on. I want to get my feet on the ground in Taiwan, and I know that there's a lot of crypto companies that are over there.
Oh, yeah. We have over 50 crypto companies over there now, and we have a crypto congressman there.
Crypto congressman?
He's actually one of the lawmakers.
Okay.
And he's proactively promoting crypto into regulation.
Okay.
And to the Taiwanese version of FSA.
Yep.
So we will be forming a crypto-friendly environment in Taiwan.
How many people on the island?
25 million.
Yeah, it's huge, and the island's big too. You can see it on a world map, which means that it's a big deal. You know, it's probably, I don't know.
It's bigger than Hong Kong.
Much bigger than Hong Kong, right? Property's not nearly as expensive.
Less expensive.
Right. You can. I mean, nothing's cheap, but
yeah. Another fun fact that Taiwan was called Formosa.
Formosa.
Oh, for your reference.
I knew the word, but I didn't know that was Formosa. Okay, great.
Yeah. The Formosa was given by European when they invaded Taiwan 100 years ago.
Okay.
So the meaning of that is a beautiful island.
Okay.
So Taiwan is very beautiful. Beside the people, the crypto environment, we still got beautiful nature.
So there's places to go hiking?
Oh, a lot.
Yeah, lots of gardens?
You got to see our mountains and the shores. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about temples and those sorts of things?
A lot.
Of what kind?
Buddhism.
Mostly Buddhist temples?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they've got gorgeous temples, and I'm very interested in checking that out, too. I'm pretty excited about this product, and I'm pretty excited about going and checking out Taiwan. Michael, thank you so much for spending a little time with me.
Welcome, Marcus.
Thank you.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.